really, it just takes away, when people know that, it takes away their confidence in the FBI. The best parts of Quantico, firearms training, we had the best and brightest. We had a lot of Secret Service dudes that came over to teach us. And the interview and interrogation was second to none. Whoa, these people are the real deal. This is unprecedented. How can you have 4x the expenditures and not have any credit card bills? Where did it come from? The guy spent the $10,000 and then made a phone call. We searched Torricelli's house. It's unheard of. When I look at the Bureau, that's what's missing. There's nobody that says, I'm in it for the Bureau. Like, I want to do this. I want to protect this country. You're not allowed to do that. And the dilemma there was simply, does that tape get lost?
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He's a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, former Army Ranger. He spent 10 years as one of an undercover FBI agent who worked on a number of high-profile corruption cases, both domestic and foreign. Usually people say foreign and domestic, but I switched it up. Spent another 15 years as the special agent in charge and was a highly regarded global FBI interrogator. He's the founder of J3 Global, which provides security services for high net worth individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Jim DiOrio.
Thanks, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here, man. I'm really honored.
No, I can't thank you enough for coming. This will be a few weeks in the rear view, but today is election day, so you'll know which day we're on here. But I know it's busy and there's a lot of shit going on, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man.
And it's probably better to be sitting in here shooting the shit with a good dude than not to say I'm a good dude. You're the good dude, but as opposed to watching the fucking news all day and all that stuff. But
agreed, man.
What's the last full book that you read?
Last full book. I like this guy Henry Cloud, so I read a couple of his. Trust was the latest one, and then he's got another one that I love, Necessary Endings. So he's a psychologist. He's a great writer, a great communicator. So just value in, for me, when I read Trust, there's a portion in there that talks about track record, and that's kind of how you can go about developing relationships, developing business relationships, and it struck home with me because I made some mistakes on the track record portion. And then you look back at your life based on this book and what he says, and you're like, yeah, I guess I was establishing a track record along the way. Yeah. Even if I didn't think that it was that at the time, And
I suppose from an interrogation standpoint, that's everything, right? Like developing trust. If whoever you're talking to and trying to get information out of feels like they can trust you, even if they can't,
absolutely.
That's really the key.
Yeah, man, and for sure. And even later on, I had opportunities to kind of instruct, at law enforcement seminars and even within what we're doing now on the private security side. And, it's all about building that relationship, whether you like the person or not. Most times you don't, so it's letting them know, hey, I've got interest in listening to you and hearing what you have to say because you have a completely different opinion of most of the things we're talking about. Yeah. But I know I need to get there in order to make you feel a little bit better about yourself. Yeah. Minimize your crazy ass things that you did. So,
what's something you wish you were better at?
Ooh. I was thinking about this on the flight, and West Pointers, I think all military guys don't think they're good enough. And I think it's what drives us a lot of times. So I wish I was better at not thinking I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Do you think it's a self-confidence thing or?
I think it's the competitive portion. I can remember getting to West Point on day one, 17-year-old kid, walk in. I think there was 1,500 of us that showed up. I think we graduated 2007.
Oh, wow.
It was all said and done. A lot of those just guys that left, or girls that left a long way. But I can remember the first night, they take you down to, of course, Eisenhower Hall, Ike Hall, and you're sitting there, and Superintendent 3-star steps up and he says, hey, look to your left, look to your right. One of you won't be here. And I'm sure you had similar experiences along the way. Yeah. And then they do this thing where they're like, okay, all class presidents, go ahead and stand. And a bunch of people get up. All varsity athletes who were captain of the team stand. A lot of guys get up. National Honor Society, max the SATs, president, of this club, boys state, girls state. and everybody's standing. And I can remember getting down to like the last few people, and I felt like he was going to say, Jim DiOrio, okay, you can go ahead and stand up now too. So I think it comes with being the big fish. In high school I was, did this, and I was vice president of the class, and I was this, and I was that, and playing sports and the whole deal. And then all of a sudden you get to West Point, and you're like, there's a whole bunch of other people that are exactly the same or better. So I think that's where it comes from. It's kind of not a bad thing. It drives you. Yeah. I felt like it drove me along the way.
Yeah.
But it hurts a little bit, even now.
Sure. Yeah, I could see it doing kind of a strange balance of giving you confidence to know that you're amongst these people, but also making you feel a little inadequate, and that it's like, holy shit, how am I amongst these people?
100%. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah. If time travel were possible, where and when would you go?
I talk about something, and I'll give a longer answer to this, but I talk about something, the legacy I want to leave for my grandson. It's a special thing. A grandkid is a special thing, and I know a lot of people talk about it, and they're like, yeah, that must be great, but it's unbelievable. And I know for a fact, someday that kid and his brother and whoever other God gives me other grandkids will walk to my coffin. I'm positive of that. What does my legacy look like to them? So I'd love to have the opportunity to go a little bit further out with them and say, Sal, what did Poppy do that you liked? What did you talk about to people? What did you see when you saw Pop on YouTube, or you saw Pop talking about an issue or something that he did? How did that make you feel, and how did that help your life?
Yeah.
Is that a good legacy, Sal, do you feel? So maybe something along the lines of that.
Of going forward.
Going forward a little bit. I mean, I can go back. I mean, I obviously being trained at the academy and going through military history and looking at people, you could say a lot of things about that. I'd love to be with, Robert E. Lee when he walked out to his troops after, the Pickett's charge. But I don't think it gives, for me, it's not what drives me today. What's driving my purpose is that little boy.
Yeah.
And I can get emotional because I just was with him. And by the way, he was a mess. He wouldn't put his tuxedo on. It was just, but he's typical. He fits me pretty good. So I think that's kind of the way I feel about it.
At the risk of drawing any more emotion out of you, which is not my intention, but I am curious. I don't have grandkids. Maybe I will one day. Can you kind of, I guess, briefly describe what the difference is? I mean, why is a grandkid so much more special than a child? Well, not more special, but different.
I think you're in the game hard with your kids, and you're driving them to be, in a lot of ways, what you weren't. In a lot of ways, the potential you see in them, and trying to convince them to do things that are for you. A grandkid isn't like that. It's all about that feeling that goes with. It's pure joy, pure joy. It's pure love for that child. And I have thoughts about nothing but happiness. I don't have thoughts about, well, maybe someday Sal will be, or Vinny will be. But I did. I mean, obviously, when Sal was first born, I had a onesie made up that said West Point class of 43, which my daughter said absolutely not, which is exactly what both my kids said when I was like, you guys thinking about maybe going to the military? My daughter said, no uncertain, and wear those stupid fucking uniforms. That's what she said. So I said, well, I guess that's a no. And then my son had this conversation, like, I think between his sophomore and junior year of high school. And we were walking. He said, hey, can we take a walk? We're walking on the beach. He said, I got to tell you something. I knew it was coming. He said, Dad, I really don't have any interest in West Point. And I said, oh, no, I said to him, that's why I never pressured you. Yeah. And he looked at me. He's like, what? So I'm like, yeah, that's why. He goes, Dad, your entire life is about that.
Yeah. Your entire life just assumed that you wanted him to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And never really thought I had to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But I did.
I love the fact that their names are Sal and Vinny. It's fucking great.
It's the best pizzeria. We're opening we can add that to maybe do a little marketing here today for that pizzeria. That's 25 years in the future.
Yeah. Hey guys, I want to take a minute to tell you about the Mic Drop Patreon, where you can get the real mic drop experience the way it's meant to be seen. You get completely uncensored, unfiltered, and uncut episodes with nothing held back, just raw, real conversations directly from me to you. Without YouTube censorship, plus you'll see it days before anyone else, with early premieres and exclusive bonus content that you won't find anywhere else. You get behind-the-scenes access to the show, including pre- and post-show footage, with me and the guest both in studio and on location, depending on what the guest is into and what we have going on. On top of that, we've got tons of Patreon-only perks, mic drop swag, access to exclusive merch, and the chance to submit your questions to be asked at the end of every episode. You'll also get a sneak peek at our upcoming guests, so you'll know who's in the studio weeks before anyone else. We're constantly releasing new features and dropping new content based on what you want to see. For our top tier members, you get the same mic drop challenge coin that all of my guests receive from the upcoming show, which will never ever be for sale. We've got quarterly merch that's sent out directly to you, a monthly Zoom call with me where we talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, and an active group chat where we all shoot the shit on a daily basis. All of that for just a few bucks a month to support the show. Right now, we're also offering a 10% discount off an annual subscription, which means that you get more than a free month. I want to say thank you to everyone who has already signed up. Your support means that we get to keep bringing you the content that you love. So if you haven't yet, hit the link in the description or go to patreon.com/micdrop and join the team. I'll see you guys in there. Thank you.
Since the Civil War, dogs have stood alongside our military, proving to be indispensable partners. Our military prioritized ensuring proper canine nutrition for optimal performance, recognizing its vital role in mission success. Team Dog embodies that standard, offering science-based, customizable meal plans tailored to your dog's unique needs. Developed by a former Navy SEAL and canine trainer, Team Dog Food ensures the highest quality nutrition for our canine companions. Improve your dog's well-being. Be your dog's hero with Team Dog.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Yeah, I have two, and I want to share both of them. They've both come from my old man, from my dad. One is, be a fountain, not a drain. And the second one is, the magic lies in the work you're avoiding.
Yeah.
Right? It's things I've heard more recently on social media. But
I've never heard the first one. That's great.
Yeah, man. Be a fountain, not a drain. And he talked about that. And, my pop, I thought about it the other day, he'll be dead 30 years come January 6th. Funny date this year. And I'll be, next year it'll be, I'll have lived without him the same amount of time that I lived with him. So he died when I was 31. He was 66. He was a guy who always had his shoes facing out, man, every morning, like ready to go. And even on the day he died in bed, had a massive heart attack, terrible Italian genetics. And, I asked my mom to leave him there in the room until I could get there. I was up living in Rhode Island, and I got down there, and his I'll never forget, his slippers were facing forward.
Wow!
And to me, that just told me he was ready. He was ready to take the day on, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And then I started listening to people. You don't realize that until later. At his wake, somebody told me, "Hey, listen, be present at the wake," and it was quick because he died quick. And we had the traditional Italian wake where my aunts were diving on the coffin, the whole deal, right? And
like a scene out of Sopranos.
It truly was. Yeah. And up comes a couple people, and they just had stories about him. And one guy touched me so much who said, do you remember your pop leaving early, when you were a school kid? And I said, oh, yeah, definitely. I used to be like, hey, why can't he drive me to the bus stop? Lazy stuff. And he said, I did that. He said, because he shaved my dad who was dying of cancer every morning.
Wow.
He said, because my dad, the only person that my dad trusted was your dad.
What did he do for a living?
He's a fireman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was a fireman in Newark, New Jersey.
That's awesome.
At the hot spot.
Were both your parents full Italian?
Dad, yes. Mom, half German.
Oh,
so
okay.
my grandmother, my grandfather was Italian, and my grandmother German. So
okay.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think it becomes more and more rare to have people, especially in this country, I guess, that have such a concentrated background, heritage-wise. But to me, there's always something that's been fascinating about the Italian culture here in the United States, especially the Upper East Coast Italian culture, where it's just, I don't know, there's just something to it. I think it's why it's so popular in movies and kind of pop culture and whatever. But it's just such a neat component of the culture up there.
Truly, truly is. And I can remember growing up, my dad was one of 7.
Oh, wow.
So my mom, smaller, just her brother, but one of 7. So we would have cousins, cousins time. And interestingly enough, there's a small shore town, Belmar, New Jersey, and it's between Asbury Park, which Bruce Springsteen, area, and like Seaside Heights. So that's where it lies. And we used to rent a place every year for 2 weeks. So that was a big deal. We go down the week after Easter, find a place. Oh yeah, we're gonna stay here for 2 weeks. My Italian grandmother loved it. One time we're kind of down there, we're driving, we're looking around the area we loved, and my dad goes, "Oh, wait a minute, that's my buddy Tommy Baldessari up there on the porch. Let me stop and talk to him." Yeah. He goes up on the porch, he comes back, he says to his mother in Italian, which I found out later, "Give me the dinner money," because we went to this place called the Capri Diner, which my grandmother swore was the only place that made authentic Italian sauce. Yeah. So my grandmother reluctantly gives the $40 up, and we bought the house. Wow. We bought the house for $3,900 in 1968.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Now I think the thing, we sold it a long time ago, but the thing now is like, a couple $1 million. Yeah, so wow. Crazy. Man. But we shared those time down that area. My dad's sister bought a place. His other brother bought a place. So that Italian culture even lived throughout the summers when the kids were off from school. We'd have these big, huge pasta dinners in the backyard in the middle, like, a 90-degree day, and we'd be out there eating pasta. Everybody'd be jealous of it. So I know what you mean. It still has a strong flavor.
Do you have a favorite family-made meal?
Yeah, definitely. With two things. My mother, my sister's lasagna, who she learned directly from my grandmother. Yeah. And then just homemade, my grandmother's homemade sauce, which I paid attention as a kid, and I didn't really start cooking it until the last couple of years. Really? When Sal was born, I said, "Let me try this," because I remember Grandma's recipe, and it wasn't written down, it wasn't anywhere. Just like watch her, and she took it on. There was a couple things like a little bit of sugar, a little bit of red wine, but some other things. The way you cook the braciole, the pork braciole, you put in first with oil and garlic, and I got it down to a science now. Yeah. So I love my own sauce, and everybody else seems to like it too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool stuff, man.
In that same vein, is there a restaurant, New Jersey, New York, just somewhere up in that region that you think nails Italian food the best?
Yeah, definitely. So there's the traditional, like the one you hear about is Rayo's in Brooklyn, where you can't get a table for I don't know how long, but there's a little place around me called Vic's. And it's been in business. I think it's probably been 100 years, because I remember as a kid getting pizza from there on Friday nights in the summers. And I live down. I'm back at the shore, so I'm down in that area. After my second divorce, I just slid down the road a little bit. And I got a nice little apartment.
Cool.
And Vic's he's spot on. And there's nothing to it. It's one of those places. If you walked by it, you'd be like, I'm not touching that place. Yeah. And you go in there, and makes everything scratch every day. He does it. One of the sons does it. Lights out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So Vic's and Bradley Beach.
Yeah,
head over there if you're listening.
Do you carry an EDC where you're at? I'm assuming you can, but do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, definitely.
Can you say what it is?
I've been a Glock guy forever and a day, so still,
a specific model.
Right now, I like the smaller, like that. They have a 43 now. Yeah. That's just it's almost like a credit card, and it makes it easier for me to kind of just get to. And I find the shooting, the actual marksmanship and shooting portion is still intact, but my movements have slowed down. I'll be 61 next month already. So, and we both know you just got to keep rolling, right? You got to keep doing it. But I've always liked the Glock. I think it just makes sense to me. Obviously, it's what I trained on. Early on as an Army officer, and then later on as an FBI agent.
Do you in the Army? You guys use Glocks? You didn't use the Beretta?
I think we had the Berettas, and we had like I think we had the 45s, maybe the Colt 45.
Yeah. The FBI uses Glock exclusively.
Yeah, they went over. We were 6 Sauer when I first came in, and I couldn't get used to that weapon. It's nice, but I couldn't get used to it. Glock just seems to flow better for me. Yeah. A lot of guys don't like it.
I think it's a great gun.
Yeah, a lot of guys have. It's easy. It's sensitive on the trigger side, and we've had some issues with that. People have never shot before, kind of. Scaring the shit out of the entire range. So. Yeah.
Do you have a preferred carry ammo?
I don't know if I should say this, but I still have access to the 40 cal. So. So I still use that. Yeah. Nines, and some of my weapons have 9s, and I'm fine with that too.
I guess from an actual brand or like ballistic standpoint.
I think the Remington is what I usually get access to.
Oh, is it ball ammo? Or
really? It's ball. Yeah. Yep, definitely. I have a couple rounds that I carry, when I'm carrying in New York City these days.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I mean, to me, I like Spear Gold Dot probably the best, but there's so many of them out there, I guess. But,
definitely.
What time do you get up in the morning, and what does the first 3 hours look like?
I'm a 5:30 guy. Usually automatically. It's not. I sleep pretty well. I mean, first couple hours, it's changed over the course of my life, but the last couple years, I think is important. I'm living right across the street from the beach, from the Atlantic Ocean, so I usually get up and go snap a couple pictures of the sunrise, take a walk. I just started running again. I'm training for a half marathon in here.
Oh, really?
The Lone Star.
Oh, that's cool.
Here, I think it's April 12th, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Doing it for a couple causes, and so I'll do that, and then usually do a little bit of Bible work, get in the Word, read my verse of the day, and do some prayer, and think about the kids, and think about all the things that I'm grateful for, and then usually I try not to touch the phone. I try not to touch the email right out of the box. I got a little coffee shop that's not far away that I'll head to and do email for an hour. And then I'll either go to the gym and work out either in the morning or in the evening. I'm doing this thing for Everyday Spy. It's called the Spy Fit Challenge right now, Lean and Mean. So we've got a bunch of guys and girls that are coming on. Matter of fact, tonight's our last night. And I've dropped like 45 pounds in the last probably year.
Wow.
It's been good.
That's cool. That's awesome.
It's been good. So that's kind of my habit. And then talk to both my kids. I try to talk to both the kids. I try to see if I can get Sal on FaceTime if he's feeling ready to rock and roll that morning. But it's a nice little process, you know.
Yeah. How old are the grandkids?
He's 2.5, and Vinny will be born December 9th. So,
wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Vinny's making his entrance right before Army-Navy game.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good game this year, I think.
It's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
Our quarterback went down.
Oh, really?
He had a foot infection, I'm hearing.
Oh, man.
So he didn't play against Air Force, but we still wind up beating them with the backup. Air Force pretty weak this year.
Yeah.
But this week we've got North Texas on Saturday, so I'm here for the game
nice.
too, which is going to be great.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Be really good.
Yeah. All right. So you're originally from New Jersey, right?
Yes.
Can you kind of describe what your childhood was like growing up then, and the dynamic of the family, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. So 2 siblings, both older. My sister's 12 years older. My brother's 10 years older. My mother, to the day she died, would tell me that I was wanted, and I just said I'm perfectly fine with being here. So thank you, Mom.
Yeah.
And both of them are big. They were a second set of parents, coming that much older than me. We grew up in first through fourth grade. We grew up in Newark, New Jersey. So we grew up in a big city.
Yeah.
My dad was a Newark fireman, and then started the arson squad there in Newark in the late '60s. My mom was a homemaker, and when we made a move to the suburbs, I think it was about 10 or 11. I was in fourth grade. She went back to work because my dad had his first heart attack.
Oh, wow.
So I can remember being like a latchkey kid. My brother and sister were both pretty much gone. My sister was married early and with 3 kids now, 3 great kids who are really more like my brothers and sister because they're so close in age to me. My brother went to dental school and kind of was a hardworking guy. But I remember a very happy childhood, supportive parents. My dad, I think, had mellowed over the years, and when I had the opportunity I got recruited for baseball at West Point, which is what kind of piqued my interest. I remember how proud, but how like unbelieving he couldn't believe it because I think he grew up with people telling him, well, West Point, that's for rich people, which. The Italian culture in Newark growing up, that's what they thought. Well, they wear a lot of brass, a lot of stuff on their uniforms, so they have to be rich.
Yeah.
So I just can remember just being supported completely. Like there was never, I think a couple of times I caught a couple of beatings for being a wise ass because he still was an Italian dad, and my mother after his heart attack would tell me, all right, I'm not going to yell at you in front of your father because it gets him nervous.
Yeah.
So meet me in the garage because I want to beat you over the head. So, but very happy. And then nieces and nephews came quick. My oldest nephew is 52.
Oh, wow.
So, here I am at 60 and he's 52 and we're more like brothers. I can remember just being a big part of their lives and helping my sister as much as I could with the kids And I think it's where I kind of developed that love for fatherhood and grandfatherhood, and just seeing how precious children in the world are, and watch them. Both my nephews were tremendous NCAA wrestlers.
Oh, wow.
So one wrestled at Lehigh, one wrestled at North Carolina. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time doing that. I was a 500 wrestler. Either my matches all ended within 30 seconds. Either I got thrown to my back, or I got lucky and threw the other person to his back. So it was quick.
So baseball and wrestling, did you play football or anything?
Football too. Yeah. Played football in a pretty big New Jersey high school. Yeah. Had a great experience doing that. Baseball was helped me get looked at from schools, Seton Hall in New Jersey, NJIT, a couple other Division I programs, but West Point was just different. When I visited, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Yeah. Then I spent some time with a class of 77 dude down in Fort Bragg. My brother was in the Army as well. He was a dentist in the Army. So he brought me down to Bragg, and when I got that opportunity to go visit, I just was like, wow, this is great.
I've never been there. I'd love to tour it, but it seems like, I've seen videos and pictures, of course, but
yeah, man,
it's like there's just so much prestige and history there, and like it just seems like such a fucking cool place.
It's a great place. Anytime come up, we'll take you around. We got a good Class 86 tailgate going on for football, nice. And just a bunch of really.
I don't know,
cool
being
dudes,
a Navy guy, it might be. Dicey.
You'll be fine. Yeah, we'll talk about you, but we'll talk about you to your face, so it won't be a big deal.
Yeah. As you guys know, sleep is a huge component to recovery and really all aspects in life, and it's something that a lot of us have struggled with, for a lot of our lives, frankly. As you know, I've been a big proponent of Beam, which is a hot cocoa that you drink before you go to sleep, and it's helped tremendously in terms of hours of sleep maintained as well as the quality of sleep. Today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, which is their science-backed hot cocoa for sleep, and it's got no added sugar. Better sleep has never tasted better. As you know, other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess and just make you feel crappy, but Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, and apigenin, also melatonin, to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/micdrop, all caps, all one word, and use code MicDrop, all one word, all caps, at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/MicDrop and use code MicDrop for up to 40% off. Guys, as you know, I work with a number of different products. One that's easily the most near and dear to my heart from a cause standpoint and a personal relation standpoint is Bubs Naturals. The hat on the coffee table sitting right in front of me belonged to Glenn Doherty. It was a John Deere hat that I gave him. He had it when he tragically passed in Benghazi. And I was fortunate enough to get it back from one of the co-owners of Bubs. He sent it back to me to be able to keep. Bubs Naturals is a tribute to Glenn. He was one of everybody's, he was kind of that guy that was everybody's best friend. I met several people that considered him his best friend, and he was a guy that was impossible not to like, and just, caused happy waves that rippled through every community he was ever a part of. His nickname was Bub, and that's where Bubs Naturals comes from. But it's a lifestyle brand. It's inspired by Glenn. They give a ton to charity. They've donated over $200,000 to charitable causes since their inception in 2018. On Veterans Day, 100% of the proceeds go to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation, which does phenomenal work helping active duty and children of lost active duty members go to college or scholarships that they've donated a ton, and they also are heavy into the recreation space of helping people do that, because that's what Bub was all about. They have collagen peptides, which I put into my morning routine every single morning, as well as the functional creamer / MCT oil that goes into it as well. They have hydrate or die electrolyte drink mixes, which are great for pre-workout, during workout, and post-workout to get all the added sodium, potassium, magnesium, etc. that's required when you deplete it. And they now have Bub's Brew, which is a specialty organic coffee that is also very, very good. It's USDA organic, fair trade. It's Whole30 approved, which is the first time that's happened. It's free of yeast, mold, and aflatoxins. Small lot roasted, guaranteed fresh, and it tastes great. Biggest thing is Bub's is a family company. The way that they started is, again, super close to my heart, with him being one of my closest friends for a long time. And I just can't say enough good things about that company, of the product that they put out, why they started, what they give back to veteran communities and the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. And I encourage you to go to bubs.com, and now there's a landing page specifically for Mic Drop listeners. Just enter the code Mike, M-I-K-E, all caps, and you get 20% off your first purchase at bubsnaturals.com. So that's www.bubsnaturals.com/Mike. And you can check out the Mic Drop landing page and go support an amazing cause. Yeah, that's awesome. So at what point did you fully decide, like, yes, I'm going to West Point, and that's what I want to do?
Yeah, so it was late in my senior year of high school that call kind of happened. So I was not eligible to go into the class of 85, which is where I would have been. So I went to a year of prep school. So West Point has its prep school. It used to be at Fort Monmouth in New Jersey. And it was a great year. So it's twofold, right? So first off, you get more prepared for West Point and get a good look. It's a free look because you're off every weekend. You're not attached to the Corps cadets, so you're separate. You actually come in as a reservist. So I think came in as an E1 and left as an E3, getting paid, doing the thing, thinking I had a ton of money. And then that kind of, I can remember just thinking, I think this is it, and I just, a lot of people talk about their service academy careers and how it was brutal and they hated it and everything else, but I really enjoyed it. It was me, it made sense, and it was the first place where I felt included. I felt like I belonged. I truly felt like I belonged there.
Yeah. Is there a memory that stands out as being the most exceptional?
I think the first day. Right, it's called reception day, so our day, and I can remember watching it like in movies and reading about it, and then all of a sudden I was there. I was like, "Holy shit, this is crazy!" And then breaking down with your squad, right? So all of a sudden I looked around. I'm like, "Man, we got 12 or 13 people that have the same kind of thought process." A couple of women, because remember, class at 1980 was the first class of women in all the service academies. Yeah. So I came in 1982, so it was shortly after the first couple of women had graduated, so being coupled together with them as a team, and then just having a really cool group of dudes in my Beast Barracks. So Beast Barracks is your first 8 weeks. So it's significant, but it's not like overwhelming. It's more of a team build. Yeah, you get screamed at and yelled at. I just remember thinking like, wow, I'm here. Yeah. Wow, I can't believe this. That was kind of the memory, and then being together with my best friend growing up. So he and I both got appointed the same year. Oh, wow. So we were buddies from 4th grade on, and just being with him and being able to share. We would go up to the only place to go to chapel. The only place to get like a drink and a cookie was at chapel on like Thursday nights. Yeah. So we went up to chapel. We were both like, yeah, we'll say a prayer or two, but mostly it's look at those chocolate chips, bro. So he and I think, helped each other out. And I remember those discussions like, hey, I don't know. I remember him saying like, I don't know, man. I think I'm out. And I'm like, why? Let's just say. And then I remember him saying something to me that was powerful. And, I was telling him like, man, everybody's up my ass. Like, I don't know. I'm attracted because I was a typical Jersey kid. Like, couldn't keep the mouth shut when I was supposed to. So I would just say something or smirk. And he's like, do me a favor. And I'm like, all right. He's like, try to look around, dude. Like, even though they're telling you that you got to keep your eyes straight ahead or down on the ground, look around and tell me what you see. And I remember doing that, and everybody was catching the same shit. Yeah. And I came back the next week, and he's like, what'd you see? I go, man, everybody's in this. He goes, I'm catching it. He goes, this dude's catching it. He goes, let's just get through this, and then we'll move forward. And then he had moments like that, too. That was a powerful piece for me. Just being part of the Corps Cadets, going out, having a parade, and everybody kind of being there, like hundreds of people, thousands of people being there. The first football game, being able to put on an Army baseball uniform. I only played for 1 year because my thought was I quickly realized like I'm going to fail out of this place because I'm not a great multitasker. I got me to focus on one thing or the next.
Yeah.
So just all of it, incredible memories.
Yeah.
By the way, that guy that I told you about, my buddy, he's Colonel John McHugh.
Wow.
He was killed in Afghanistan
Man.
May 18, 2010 by a suicide bomber. So
That's brutal. I'm sorry
yeah,
to hear
brother.
that.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's rough.
Great dude.
Yeah.
Left 5 kids behind.
Man.
Just a bunch of grandkids.
Yeah.
A good man.
Yeah.
Good man. The best.
Yeah, that's incredible. All right, so your 4 years there, as you were wrapping your time up there, what was kind of your mentality moving forward in terms of what you wanted to do versus where you ended up going? And did you think further ahead, like this is something I want to make a career out of, or ultimately I want to be in the FBI? What was kind of going through your mind at that point?
The big focus was I'm going to spend my it's called 5 and fly. I want to do my 5-year commitment, and I am going to run and become this corporate, czar out there. And I'm going to kill it. I'm going to make a ton of money, and I'm going to live in this house, and I'm going to buy a second house, which wasn't really me. But that was kind of where I felt comfortable. My kind of role there as a classmate was kind of like the heart and soul and the people person, right? So I think I developed the skills that have been so instrumental in my success later in my career with the Bureau, right there. Like just people will say, like, I forget, how you forget things and then you realize when somebody tells you like, oh, that was oh my God, yeah. Or you don't place it. For you, it might have been a time in high school that a person you see and you're like, was that a high school dude? Was he one of the guys I trained? Was he in my bud's class? Wait a minute, was he? And all of a sudden they tell you a story and you're like, well, that's exactly where that person was. And that's kind of how I was, like, kind of having those memories of different people at different times. My room used to be open. I always had roommates that were very patient. So I just entertained. I was great at imitations of people. I was great at like making people laugh. So you'd have, 15, 20 people in the room and I'd be putting on a show, and then only to realize that I forgot to write a paper or didn't do my physics homework. Right. So, I think the thought at that point was, let's go out and do something cool. Right. And I wanted to be a field artillery officer, which I did become. And then later, as branch transferred over to civil affairs. Because the intel always intrigued me, but I wasn't sure of the process. I knew I didn't want to go military intelligence. I knew I didn't want to be an MI officer and go to Fort Huachuca and then be stationed somewhere in Alaska. I knew I didn't want to do that for sure. But I knew I needed to do something that would, kind of line up and sync with my skill set. So really nothing more than just let's get out to SIL, let's go to Oklahoma and fire big guns downrange and, compete for a Ranger slot and see how that made out and challenge myself there and just be, the best leader that I could wherever I got assigned after it was said and done. Which happened to be a kind of a mix. It was kind of a mixed spot. So I was between Fort Stewart and Fort Bragg and Fort Jackson was my first assignment because there was a bunch of shit going on. And
what year was this?
This is 1986 to 1990. Well, 86 to 89.
Okay.
Around that time, and it's where I met the guy who really changed my course. One of my battalion commanders, who was a Citadel guy, class 74 was a Citadel, tough ass dude, and he was like, "You're doing well here. I like what you're doing. I like the way you lead soldiers. Your battery command has been successful, but you need to get on the intel side, and here's why." And I was like, I remember saying to him, like, "Sir, thank you so much." Your typical line, right? Then you're standing at attention as a senior first lieutenant before you make captain. "Sir, thank you so much, but I'm going to decline." And he said, "Well, this isn't a fucking party invitation. You can't RSVP no."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, what are my options?" He said, "You don't have any. I'm your battalion commander. I'll low block. I'll 10 block you. You'll never get promoted again." I'm like, "You would do that?" He goes, "Yeah, because I'm giving you an opportunity." And that's when I started looking into civil affairs and, all that came with that counter surveillance part of it, the interview and interrogation, which I didn't realize was so ingrained in me. And I'll jump ahead for a minute. I know I'm an Italian guy from Jersey, man. I can't help myself, right? So
it makes my job easy.
Going forward a little bit, I would say my dad died in 95. I would say this is probably 2011, 12-ish. There's there's a new county prosecutor in one of the counties in New Jersey that I was responsible for. And he says, I'd like to meet you. I'd like to take you out for coffee and whatever. I said, great. Name's Joe Coronado. Great dude. Became a dear friend and didn't realize, again, one of those moments where you're like, who is this guy? How does he know me? You know? And when I first saw him again, I was like, Joe, you used to sit on my porch with my dad, like in Belmar. He goes, yeah, I'm the guy who your dad trained at the Division of Criminal Justice in New Jersey as a young prosecutor.
Wow.
And he said, I'd like you to come to retire and come be my chief of detectives. And I said, I can't. You know, I'm doing well. I'm happy here, whatever. I understand. He goes, I got something for you. And he gave me some old school tapes of my dad's interrogations.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I remember putting them in. There was one video. It was terrible, but I watched it. I probably worn it out. But there were cassette tapes too. And he said, what do you think? And I said, that's my style. That's it. There was I never talked to my dad about interrogations, how to do it, what to do, but it was my exact style. Like I told, like getting to know the person, listening, minimizing their crazy ass shit. And he was a big, like I said, he was an arson guy, so he was constantly, had thugs and shit'ems that he was interviewing with regards to what they did, and it brought it home. Like, whoa, I think I have something here, and. It was amazing. Like along that way, not even having the opportunity to sit with my dad ever, because he never knew I was in the FBI. He died before I went in. And be able to kind of talk to him through these tapes and through just saying, Pop, am I doing this right? And it would always guide me along the way in tough interrogations, anything that I did, interviews, in basic cases or negotiations with U.S. attorneys about public corruption cases that they didn't want to take because,
What a special opportunity too to get to hear your dad's voice, after he's dead.
Unbelievable.
I can't.
Mike, it was
gold mine.
Oh, dude, it was like it changed. Like I wouldn't say it changed my purpose, but it certainly gave me that push to know I was on the right track.
For sure.
And he was speaking to me.
Yeah, that's
through
amazing.
those tapes.
That's super cool. So that big pivot at that point changed your trajectory. You go into civil affairs. Can you walk us through the kind of the path from going from that and then ultimately ending up in the FBI? Yeah,
man. So definitely like a paperwork drill, but with some other stuff like a mini Q course and everything that they do, and then kind of certifying and all that crazy stuff, the SEER school and all that goes with that, which was interesting to me and actually helped me down the line, even today in the business, right? Yeah. Going through some of that stuff, and so now I'm thinking about getting out. So I'm thinking about now, okay, I've really enjoyed this, but I'm going to try corporate America for a little bit. And there's another kind of funny spin in my life that happens. And there's an opportunity now to do some work in a national security agency's corporate program. So what a lot of people don't know is there's people that are sitting in your corporation, known by the C-suite, maybe known by one person from the C-suite, who is helping collect data and intel that might be very kind of applicable to other countries' interests.
Really?
And their national security and their ability to kind of fuck with us. That's the easiest way to put it. So I have this opportunity to go work for a major insurance company up in Rhode Island. But the caveat was, here's what you're actually going to be doing. So I tell, there's only actually two people, one of them has passed, that knew that I was doing that at the time. And I could remember my dad was still alive, and my dad one time was like, can I ask you a question? I'm like, he goes, what the fuck do you know about insurance? And he was the only one that kind of had a sense. Everybody else was like, oh, that's great. You're doing great with that insurance. You're going to promote it. You're going to the training. And I'm like, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Like zero idea, but I knew I knew who I had to report to. I knew what I was reporting on. And that turned me on, man. Like that was like, oh dude, this is what I want to do. How do I do it? So now the process, there's a couple of avenues at that point, right? You can go agency side or on the true intel side, or which part of it was what I was doing, or you can go off on the investigative side. And for me, that was what I felt, where I felt I could help most in the summer of 1997. And there's a whole thing that happens along the way there where they're very happy with my decision. I moved through the process from Thanksgiving to January. So Thanksgiving 97, I'm sitting in Quantico on January 4th, 1998.
Wow. That fast.
Unheard of, because all of my background had been done. So there was really not anything more they had to do. I already had the SCI clearance.
Yeah.
So all that stuff was intact. So they moved me into a class. And I remember talking to somebody, what's this Quantico thing about? And depending on who you spoke to, they were like, oh, dude, it's impossible. Like, it's so hard. And then one of my other buddies says, they'll come out and meet you like at the front of the dorm and carry your shit in and call you sir. Yeah. So I'm like, well, he's definitely screwing with me. Yeah. Like, no doubt. Well, I pull up. And it was another decision, like, to leave the kids again, because I was gone a bunch from the kids. And my ex, Sue, the mother of my children, great person, and really was supportive on that side. So I had to go for 7 or 8 months to Quantico, right? And I can remember the morning of, like, maybe I'll just go back and really try to work for the insurance company. That thought came to me. And I'm like, you know what? Let's go. So I go, and I pull up in front of the thing, and these people come out and start, like, carrying my stuff to my room. And I'm waiting. A month went by, and I'm like, oh, there's got to be a day where they're going to yell at us. And the day that was, we did something called a point run. It was like 6 miles at a 35-minute a mile pace. I mean, whatever. And everybody's, oh, I'm dying. Like, all these, oh my God. And I'm like, am I missing something? And then there was this woman who was awesome, and she was like a legend at the FBI Academy. I think she did time with Hoover. Like, that's how old she was. She starts yelling at us, like, you better start. And then she'd forget what she was saying. So I'm like, there it is, man. So Quantico, a cinch, but the best parts of Quantico, firearms training, we had the best and brightest. We had a lot of Secret Service dudes that came over to teach us. And the interview and interrogation, like second to none. And I could remember that, just the instructors there and just the experience from those instructors and the people they had interviewed and interrogated just was like, whoa, these people are the real deal. So I took that in, and then we had a run with Director Free, one of the greatest leaders in the history of the world, Louis Free. Just amazing. And we miss guys like that at the Bureau. We miss guys like that. And I can remember we went on a run with him one morning. It was shortly before our graduation, April of 98. And he shared with us that morning, I got something to share with you. Today, I will interview a woman who claims that President Clinton had sex with her in the Oval Office, Monica Lewinsky. Wow. And he shared that with us. So like I was looking around, I'm like, holy cow, we just got inside information from the president. But of course, we were going to graduate from Quantico in a week or so, and the whole process of where are we going to go. And I was actually told I was coming to the Dallas field office, and then at the last minute, which is usual, anyone that puts New Jersey or New York in their top 3, that's where you're going. Yeah. And everybody loves you in the class. Oh, thank you so much. Guys that grew up in Arkansas or grew up in South Carolina, they're like, the city scares me, and what can I get? I remember one guy saying, I got about $110,000 to buy a house. What can I get? I said, you can get somebody's garage. You could buy somebody's garage.
Nothing. Down payment.
Not a damn thing. Yeah. You're going to be owing money for a while. So that kind of was the experience through basic, agent training, and then leading to my first field office. So,
how long is the FBI Academy?
Now it's about 20. I think it's about a half a year, about 6 months.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you go back for a couple of after 9/11, they started adding in a 4 or 5 week intel/terrorism training. So you would go back. We didn't do that. We were in the mix pretty quickly. Okay.
So. So you when you first came into the FBI, it was 97, 98?
Yeah, yes.
And you retired at what year?
2018. Okay. So just over 20.
Yeah,
yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, before we get into kind of your career path, I am curious to get your take on, in the last, say, 5 to 7 years maybe, the FBI has kind of taken it on the chin a little bit with whether it's, I think it seems like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it kind of started with Comey's injection or interjecting himself into the political arena, maybe more than he should have.
The Hillary piece, for sure.
Would you say that's when it started? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. So Comey came in after, Bob Mueller. Bob Mueller was who he was, right? He never bullshitted about, hey, I'm going to be somebody different. He was the guy that if you had to brief him, you could spend 2 days prepping for it, and he'd ask the one question that you'd walk out of that prep session saying, man, I fucking hope he doesn't ask that question. Every time. He's just a brilliant dude, but an administrator. Not a not a bad leader, but somebody that you wouldn't jump up and say, let's go with, But he turned, I can remember someone asking in the, I think it was in the New York field office, he came for a visit and somebody said, hey, when did we turn into the FBI? And he was like, I don't understand, the Federal Bureau of Administration, which is really what he did. And it was like a lot of, crossing the T, dotting the I, putting the seal on things that that didn't make a difference. Going out to source our entire source base in the Bureau about something that 90% of them would have no ability to report on, and confusing them. So now they're saying, wait a minute, I've always reported on Wall Street white collar. Now you're asking me whether or not there was Chinese hand in ADP. I have no fucking idea. And so, but he wanted to kind of close in everything and get that all straight. So we come off of him and we get this appointment of this guy, James Comey, who everybody's telling us, great guy, personality plus, big, tall dude, like 6'7", 6'8". I got a great picture on my phone, and I'll tell you the story after. So, so Comey does a great job in the start, right? So the first month, he's calling people's personal cell phones. I saw what you did on that case in Omaha, Nebraska. Thank you so much. And people are loving it, right? Because there's stories flipping around the Bureau. He had called someone and they were like, yeah, stop fucking with me, and hung up. And then he had his secretary call through D.C., right?
Yeah,
and then
just hung up on
he's like, yeah, here he is, right? Now, like, sorry about that, whatever. So really good stuff. But then all of a sudden we started seeing some stuff in meetings. We'd have like upper management meetings, executive management meetings, and there'd be a lot of, kind of censorship in those meetings. So you would be told before you jumped on, don't ask a question.
Oh, wow.
Don't talk about this. And I'm thinking to myself, first off, there's several of us, Richie Frankel, me, guys that don't shut up, so we're going to ask the question regardless of what you say. And we noticed quickly that things were changing. Jimmy Yacone, who I think should be I'm putting it out there, he should be the next director of the FBI, next week, hopefully. So he's Class 87 guy, Silver Star winner from the Moog. He was the guy who dropped the Delta guys off on the target. So great. I'll never tell you that, but great dude. So we definitely saw that start to happen, where Comey was positioning himself as the egotistical narcissist that he was. Yeah. Right? I'm the Bureau. Right? Now, the guy was a U.S. attorney, made some good cases. Where I knew we had a problem, there was a case, the Gotti case, where we had Sammy the Bull Gravano under guard he was a big-time witness for us, right? And I had some time spending time with Sammy. Interesting cat. What you see is what you get. Pulled himself out of Witsack, right? The whole deal. But Comey had written in his book this 60 or 70-page portion about his performance, Comey's performance during that case. He had none.
Just blowing his own horn?
Yeah, he had none. Yeah. He wasn't. We had people coming to us saying, like, I worked that case. I never saw the guy, that kind of thing. Yeah. So then it started to become more and more like, what's going on with this guy? And then obviously the headshot for Comey was the Hillary investigation, right? When he decides, the FBI director, and he went back, he put his prosecutor hat on, which is not really where we're supposed to be. The meetings, the different kind of meetings we had, what was Bill Clinton, Loretta Lynch, U.S. attorney, the worst U.S. attorney ever, the worst AG. You can tell you stories about her and her husband traveling with security teams, the AG security teams, not being able to find either of them, them out wandering the beach, doing things they weren't supposed to be doing, that kind of shit, right? But ultimately, that's when he comes out of character for the Bureau. It's a very simple thing. We have the evidence, we're passing it along to the U.S. attorney, and we're sitting back. And that's all we can do, because all we're supposed to do is provide evidence of crimes against the United States of America. That's it. Yeah. I would love, listen, if I could go out and posture all of my agents' cases with the U.S. attorney's offices and say, here's what we're going to do, I would have done that in a minute. But that's not our job. It's bullshit, what happened there. Yeah. And I think that was, he fostered all those people who ran and attached to him at the time, who became the Peter Strzok's of the world, the Andy McCabe's of the world, the people that you saw in the news doing things that what they weren't supposed to do. I think Andy McCabe's a really nice guy, but when your wife is running for Congress and she's taking money from the DNC chair, Terry McAuliffe,
Yeah.
and you're out prosecuting and being in charge of federal corruption cases, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, how is that not a conflict of interest?
Exactly, and a self-reported one. Like if I grew up in New Jersey, right? So there were things that would happen along the way. Most of my corruption work was in New Jersey. Most of what I did, right? I would be like, time out. I got to tell you, like I know, I would be straight up about it. One of the funniest stories of all time. It's actually, you want to talk about a perverted mind. After 9/11, this contractor decides to go and help remove steel, but he steals it. He steals steel from 9/11.
And then, like,
who the fuck does that?
Yeah.
So we're all over it. Well, now I realize, oh my God, I've got a connection through another friend.
Yeah.
And I go into the U.S. Attorney's Office to report it to Chris Christie. And it's like, they couldn't believe I was reporting it. Like, why are you reporting? Like, it wasn't commonplace to report that stuff.
Wow.
So that's when I kind of saw a difference, in the Comey era. Chris Wray he's a really nice man. He's not a leader. He's a defense attorney. Yeah. That's what he does. That's what he did for a living. He'll turn it around and he'll go right back to doing that at a 10x position, right? I mean, Chris Wray, what people don't know, Chris Wray was Chris Christie's defense attorney during Bridgegate. Oh, okay. Bridgegate was where Christie shut the bridge down in order for retribution against the Fort Lee, New Jersey mayor and staff. And everybody else got convicted except Chris. He said, I didn't know anything about it. Bullshit, So I think that's where those things do not give the public that feeling of, very apolitical / independent investigators who, and the rank and file is right there. And you and I both know, right? I mean, in organizations like that, the rank and file is doing their job, right? It's the people that are looking to position for the next job, that become the issues. And that's what Comey fostered.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know a number of current active FBI agents that are some of the best fucking guys I know. Brilliantly smart, super fucking committed to the cause, not on either side, and just very capable, good dudes. The kind of guys you would want doing that.
Absolutely.
And which is reassuring. It's just, to me, it's a little frustrating. Not a little. It's a lot frustrating seeing the light that gets put on it, but it's also that some of the things that are being revealed are fucking alarming. And that needs to be looked into. But
that's the truth, man. Truly.
If you could kind of walk us through your career there and some of the highlight cases, I'd love to dig into and ask some questions as we get to them.
Yeah, man. So I think early on, I was kind of doing a little bit of fraud work in New York City, which was interesting, the Wall Street stuff. I got into some undercover cameo roles, which then led later down the road some more substantial undercover roles. Fun, but what I really, and we put some people away and we did some damage. But what I really loved is digging into a good public corruption case. And one of my agents he had the best line. He said, "Give me a map of New Jersey, one dart, and you could throw it anywhere in any town that it hits. Give me 30 days, I'll make a case."
Wow.
And he was not that far off from that. In local politics, anyone who's interested, this is a public service announcement. If you're interested in going into local politics in New Jersey, don't. Yeah. Because it just doesn't pay as much as you think it's going to pay. No pun intended there. But ultimately, I was fortunate enough to be selected to work a case against a sitting United States senator, a guy by the name of Robert Torricelli, who's the Democratic senator from New Jersey, one of the two. And if you think about the history of New Jersey's U.S. senators, you had Harrison Williams, Abscam, got set up basically probably one of the worst undercover jobs in the history. We still got him, right, back in the 80s. And here's a side to that. He was my nominating senator for my appointment to West Point.
Really?
Not proud of it, but I also got Bill Bradley, so the Knicks star. So
did he know that when you ended up prosecuting him? Did he know that he had?
Oh yeah, he knew those guys, and he and Bradley both had very good memories. Bill Bradley even better. So Bill Bradley actually nominated me, and I was at a Veterans Day parade, standing at the side with my family. He was driving by in a car, and he looked down. He said, "Jim DiOrio, Roseland, New Jersey." He knew everything.
Wow.
And the only other guy I knew that did that was General Schwarzkopf.
Yeah.
The best, like remembered everything about everything. So anyway, we got Torricelli. Here's what Torricelli is charged with initially, or here's the information we get that kind of stems the beginning of this investigation. There was a company, a armament plating company here in Sugar Land, Texas, right? And we noticed that on the elect forms, there's a shitload of donations going to Robert Torricelli, a senator from New Jersey. So somebody tells us, hey, doesn't make sense. I wonder why that's happening. First thing we do is we look at Torricelli's assignments. He's on, the weapons, or he's on the Armed Forces Committee, and we start to put it together, contracts, whatever. So we start going out and doing some interviews. And they're basic interviews, just like what did you do? How did you donate? Oh, well, I gave 20, whatever the limit was at the time, $2,000. And then my boss gave me a bonus the next week. So we start seeing this straw donorship piece. And then that leads to looking at more things. And then we come up with an import-export company from Bergen County, New Jersey, Asian-American guy, Korean, who was utilizing every possible loophole in order to bring his products into the country. Who's his best buddy? Robert Torricelli, the sitting U.S. Senator. Yeah. Torricelli had him convinced that he had connections, are you ready, in the North Korean government that would allow this guy to do business, grain business, in North Korea. Now, this is a smart dude. This is a smart man. So when we finally got to him and developed him as a source, and there's tons of funny stories about this guy, but we finally developed him as a source, he's like, he didn't have those connections. We're like, David, you should know. You're a South Korean, countryman. Yeah, I thought it was kind of strange, but he kept asking me for cash and Mercedes-Benz and custom-made suits. So I just kept getting it. And he did write a letter for me. Yeah, well, of course he fucking wrote a letter for you. But so this guy's sitting in the Senate doing this stuff. In addition to that, there's so many crazy stories based on that. There was a sanitation guy, right? We know this is Jersey, right? Yeah. Sanitation guy. So Chang one day calls us. Guy's named Dave Chang. He passed in jail, sadly. He calls and he says, hey, I was just in the 7-Eleven up in Fort Lee, and I'm stirring my coffee, and he had the best memory. So he's like, I'm putting French vanilla creamer and I'm stirring it. In comes Bob Torricelli in a New York Jets varsity jacket. So all right, David, look, you're going to be a witness for us at some point. Yeah. You can't be making these stories up. Pull the tape, he goes. Then he goes, I'm not done yet. This guy, Jimmy Demetrakis, who owned a big sanitation company, mobster, pulls up behind him. He's threatening to throw me into a wood chipper and then throw me. So we're like, all right. So my boss goes, would you mind just taking a minute and taking a ride up to the 7-Eleven, see if they have the tapes? So my partner and I, Gary, we're like, I can't believe we got to fucking waste time. We go up there. Guy says, yeah, I have the tape. Put it in. Exactly what said happened. So then it starts to become more of a press. We search. This is unprecedented. We search. Mary Jo White was the U.S. attorney in New York, Southern District. We search Torricelli's house. We have his attorney, Ted Wells, follow us. It's unheard of. I let him walk with the attachment to the search warrant so he could see exactly what we were looking for. Ted Wells is walking step to step. There's the TV. Oh, my God. The TV's got a scratched off serial number. Exactly. Oh, there's the two Mercedes-Benz. Oh, wait a minute. There's the suits, the custom-made suits, all lined up in order. He goes, this is corroboration, guys. We're in trouble. Get the date of that search warrant? It's the Thursday before 9/11.
Oh, wow.
9/11 hits. God rest all those souls and everything that happened there that day. And Mary Jo White calls us on the Thursday after when we were going to indict a sitting U.S. Senator. And she said, guys, how can I possibly indict a sitting United States Senator when those buildings are burning right down the street from the courthouse? And it went away. The case went away.
And that was
entirely?
It?
Entirely.
Got wiped?
Wiped.
How can you not?
How can you not?
I mean, to me, that's...
How can you not?
Even more, those burning buildings, you need to fucking...
This guy was selling this country in his role. So my claim to fame is I'm probably the only FBI agent to ever get the finger and a fuck you from a sitting United States Senator. I was passing him in a hallway, and he was like, fuck you, you missed. Right? So
is that it wouldn't be double jeopardy, but if they made it go away, can they not ever
But by that time, the gig was up. You know what I mean? Like everybody knew we were looking at them, and we had pen registers, we had shit going on. We getting ready to go on a on a wiretap. Which, by the way, everybody thinks is another thing. Everybody thinks wiretap's so easy to get. Bullshit. It's the hardest thing in the world to get. But when you get it, it's gold. Yeah. If you get it and use it properly, and you tickle the wire and do all those investigative tactics that make sense, that we still do in our business these days. We're on the verge. We go right to the line with what Andy and I do and our boys, but we're up to the line. But we can do that kind of stuff, which is helpful, right? So when I look at that case, it just takes away, when people know that, it takes away their confidence in the FBI back then. And right before, this was happening right before 9/11. Yeah. Right? So think about that failure. Yeah. Think about what happened there, the lack of communication behind each side. So corruption for me took a back seat for a minute. It came back with some really cool, interesting cases, but the buildings get hit. I'm there on the day of. So I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't.
So
before you get into that.
Yeah, man.
Just so with Torricelli.
Yes.
So nothing ever happened to him.
The only thing that happened, the Senate spanked him, right? So they came in and said, "Hey, look, we're going to some ethical violations, some moral ethical violations on his elect forms, on his election campaign contribution forms." Yeah. Saying, well, there were straw donors, there was different things going around. The dude was taking cash hand over fist. I mean, our guy, the source paid him $150K a pop for like a series of 2 or 3 payments. He got $500,000 cash, corroborated by his girlfriends. He had about 4 or 5 girlfriends, including Mick Jagger's ex-wife, Bianca Jagger, which was a great interview, by the way, because I asked her if I said, I'm going to interview you and I'm not going to be your beast of burden, which it was a bet, and I got off and she loved it, so it was good.
That's fucking great.
But yeah.
Are those bribes typically wires from straw donors, or like it's multiple layers of not being able to connect dots? But is it usually wiring money into another account, or?
The campaign is always a popular kind of way and method to do that. What you'll find amongst most of the U.S. attorneys is, unless it goes in somebody's pocket, unless that guy takes that money, that campaign money, and puts it in his pocket or uses it for Mayor Eric Adams, right? That's kind of the classic example, the New York City mayor that just was indicted. Yeah. Then they're less likely to charge it.
So what is the way that they're like, what if you can go like A to B from wherever the money is originating from, and whoever the beneficiary is, if it's a senator, whoever's being bribed, what does that money flow look like for them to get away with it?
Usually it's one of two things. It's either straight up cash, right, for a particular official action, or it's something, right? So that conversation looks something like the politicians that are good at it, the Pelosi's and the Adam Schiff and those guys that are still good at it, the Jerry Nadlers, right? It's a conversation like, damn, I got college bills coming up this month, That's how they do it, and then all of a sudden the college is paid through some nonprofit or through some PAC or something along those lines. That's mostly, but there are, on the local politics side, there are a lot of cash bribes.
Yeah, it's actual hard
cash. Just, I need 5 more houses on that plot, and the planning and zoning board is not coming through for me, Mayor, and you're the voting member. What do you need? Well, I need $15,000 per plot. What do you want? Okay, and it shows up cash, or it shows up with a car or a vacation or a cruise, any of those things.
But I guess from like a forensic accounting standpoint, if somebody wants to not do it in cash and it's going to come as a bank wire, how are they able to hide that?
Yeah, and it's for us, it's our partners with the IRS, their criminal investigative division are amazing, right? So that's their job, is to do that source and application investigation, and it goes. For instance, we had a mayor who he had a state job in New Jersey. He was making about $110,000 a year, yet his expenditures were 4x that with no bills. Yeah. So, he left himself open. As we started to look at things, we started to realize how that money was being filtered in, whether it was just straight up cash, or the fact that how can you have 4x the expenditures and not have any credit card bills? Where did it come from? There's no money. We know what he started with on this day, right? So now you've got a cash situation. People are actually either taking time over beating the CTR rules, beating the banking industry's rules, taking out, $9,000 instead of the $10,000 that triggers that CTR, that cash transaction report, and paying him over the course. And it's the long game. They play the long game. So, hey, I can't get this to you all in the next 6 months, but within a year, you'll have $75,000 cash, or you'll have a new Lincoln Navigator, or you'll have X, whatever. So
when it's vehicles, because that seems like a fairly common thing, how are they getting around registration and titling and licenses and all that shit?
It's amazing. And it's all thought out. So you have somebody who's the fake recipient of that vehicle that'll go out way outside. For instance, Torricelli, he's living in Bergen County, New Jersey, which is very close to New York City. They went to Binghamton, New York, upstate New York, and made the purchases from a Mercedes dealership there for his girlfriends. So you had Judy Balaban get one, you had Bianca Jagger get one, and then of course where they parked in his driveway, right? So he still had well, that's my girlfriend's Mercedes Benz. No, it's not. Bullshit. You know what I mean? You're driving it every day. So it's creative. It's very creative, and for the most part, you get tired of corruption investigators because they're such long-term cases. You can get tired of that work quickly. Especially because. Most of your U.S. attorneys, most of their offices, and it's a special prosecution unit that does the corruption cases, are very, very selective about cases they take or the standards and the thresholds that they need from you as an agent in order to prosecute that case.
Is there a higher standard of proof, a burden of proof on your guys' end if it's a senator, a mayor, as opposed to me?
We always felt that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's written. What's supposedly you break a law, I break a law. It should be the same as John Kerry, for instance, but it's not. Yeah. And a lot of that is there's special permissions that need to be taken. If I want to subpoena your bank account today, nobody's going to argue with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able. Let me subpoena it. Let me take a look at it. If I go to subpoena Hillary Clinton's or the Clinton Foundation, that's going to be tied up in court for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Right, so you just get frustrated. Like there has been active subpoenas from 6 different FBI field offices on the Clinton Foundation's bank records for as long as I've been.
Because they have a fleet of attorneys that fight it, it just gets tied up.
Fight it every day.
And then guys like you, 10 years later, like fuck it, I'll just move on to the next.
Yeah, I'm going to do the next case, or monitoring it, but not necessarily expecting it to come through.
Well, so that answers my biggest question in hearing this is that, Pelosi's and it's on both sides,
on both sides.
Yep. But why aren't there more prosecutions of, or at least heavier looks into these people? And that's why is because
that's a big reason.
It just gets fucking railroaded.
And your U.S. attorney has aspirations for the next job. Think about Chris Christie.
Yeah.
Right. So Jersey U.S. Attorney, District of New Jersey, became the governor. And then we saw him on the stage, right, trying to become president. We saw him wandering around Trump looking for a job.
Yeah.
So Christie, that was never unspoken. Plus, I ran the corruption unit when Christie was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. And I can remember having conversations with him about numbers. It wasn't necessarily about the fact patterns. What can we win? Versus, let's take them all.
Yeah.
Let's take them all. If we go 500, we still put a bunch of people where they belong, and the other ones had better attorneys. And there are those cases. So he was big on, I don't want to have a loss because I'm looking to become the governor and ultimately further down the line something more. So that when people say the FBI is weaponized, it's not. And I hate to say this, but who is really driving that train are those that are prosecuting those cases because their aspirations are either to go out and become, take back over their defense firm or to become greater, in power.
Yeah.
So they can't afford to have it put on them. So what's easier than a guy who's making GS 13 money, put it on that guy and say, oh, he was looking to F that guy up. I can tell you, rank and file, the things we've done and seen, we're just looking to pass the evidence along and seal the case tight, and what happens, happens. Jury world is a weird place.
Do you find for guys in that position, yourself included, that like with a prosecution attorney, that there is some ego tied into, if I build this case, I want to see it, that the guy actually gets convicted? Is there some of that if you want it to go, or is it legitimately like blindfolded fucking, looking at the scales where, hey, I'm just putting the package together and I don't, whether it gets prosecuted or not, I really don't give a fuck? Because to me, it seems like it should be that way.
Yeah.
But I can easily see how you put 2 years of time and effort into something, you'd like to know it was for something and not just like, and it ended up not happening.
I can tell you that the people I worked for, I've never seen that kind of, they're passionate, but being overzealous and trying to pass something along that's not accurate. Yeah. I hadn't seen that. Now we've read about that it has happened, right? And it's happened a lot more recently in the last 5 years. But from my standpoint, it was, and even the failures across the board, of Ray up there on Capitol Hill, sitting next to the Secret Service in a room, talking about the things that they did wrong. By the way, you and I both know how important advanced party is. That's the name of the game, and nobody did it, right? And they should just take a hit and move on. But from my standpoint, the prosecutors, you always wanted a career prosecutor. I always sought the career prosecutor. When I would go over to whatever U.S. Attorney's office I was dealing with in that portion of my career, I would go and say, who's been here the longest? Because I know they're not looking to move on to law firm B where they're going to make, 10, 12x their salary. So I wanted that person, one, because they were passionate about it, two, because they were really competent and they understood the prongs of that particular case. Corruption is difficult charges. All of your statutes are difficult. They require a bunch of different things, mostly being official action in return for something for you. Yeah. Not for something for an organization, not for something for, somebody else. It's for you. Did I benefit directly in return from my official action? Yeah. Quid pro quo, as clear as it could be there.
Yeah. So to me, in hearing you explain kind of how it all shakes out in reality, is that most of the prosecuting attorneys or district attorneys or federal judges or whoever is deciding, yes, we're going to move forward with this or not, many of them have higher aspirations. So they're thinking, do I really want to turn this table over and piss this guy off if I may, he may be able to keep me in or out of a job that I want next or whatever. So
100%.
So how do you fix that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question and it's a hard fix, right? And I think because of the comfort level of those working together, even across the aisle. So you'll have your defense attorneys who are widely known and are future employers for a lot of these people, right? So if I impress you and you've got a huge defense firm, guess where I'm coming next? And I'm a white collar attorney, or I'm a cyber attorney in this day and age, or I've worked some of the bigger corruption cases. I know I want to do my best because I want to do the right thing for the people, but at the same time, I also don't want to I want to make sure you still like me at the end of the day. The guy that's like, to me, the guy that is the most professional on both sides is a guy named Jim Nobile, who was our special prosecution guy for 30 years, never turned down judgeships, turned down huge jobs, stayed the course and retired. And he's, he watches his New York Mets and his New York Jets and he runs every day and he does his thing, right? And he's a brilliant mind. The other guy is Michael Critchley, who if I ever got jammed up, the first phone call, and I can't afford to even have the phone call with him, but I think he would take the phone call at least, right, Michael? Michael Critchley was passionate about every client that he had to the point where and he's in his late 70s now. He started as a roofer. Guy roofed houses and then went to law school at night, and brilliant mind. He was so good, and he's crossed me hundreds of times, and I'm terrified every time. Even I have a conversation on the beach with him now, I'm terrified. I tell him, I don't even want to talk to you. But I would sit, and after working a case for a year, right? And what I'm getting to is there are those passionate people, but the ones in the middle that are looking to achieve, you can't fix that. Yeah. You can't fix it because the system is broken on that front, right? You get the right attorney, you're going to get off. Critchley would put on his opening argument, usually be 2 or 3 hours, after I had worked the case for a year and knew everything. And I would sit there and go, holy shit, maybe the guy didn't do it. That was me. Yeah. Think about what the jury's thinking. Right. So, and he would classically, I saw him get this was a former NBA player who became a councilman in Jersey City, New Jersey. Right. I saw him get that guy off by proving that the way our source put the money in the guy's front seat didn't really mean that he wanted to pay him. Because look how he did it. He showed the video 500 times to the jury. Look it. He flipped it behind his back. That proves that he didn't want to pay him. It was a joke. Acquitted. I'm sitting going, the guy spent the $10,000 he fucking gave him and then made a phone call for that $10,000. That's just a crazy case. But my point is, I don't know if it's until it becomes less of a quid pro quo for those prosecutors that are looking to the future job. It's an old boys network, and I don't mean that the women are in there too. But
I mean, to me, I think anybody listening here would hear that and maybe think, well, fuck, that sucks, but that's a small part. But to me, like that's the one thing that as long as that's possible, your entire three branches of government, frankly, I mean, the legislative branch in particular, but that has, its prongs in everything to a degree with which if you have that problem where you can't fix corruption and bribery and rubbing of the elbows and quid pro quo, the entire government can't ever unfuck itself.
Absolutely
ever.
Right. Absolutely right. There's deal breakers across the board on that.
Yeah, I mean, that one single thing is keeping the government from doing what it's actually supposed to do.
100%. And the few career folks that are in there are few and far between.
Yeah.
Right? And then the Bureau, and I'm sure all the other agencies across the board that utilize the U.S. Attorney's Office in order to prosecute their misdoings, the leadership there is broken.
Yeah.
And it's the same pattern. So, for instance, and the military's like that too, in a lot of extents. Like people, I'm going to take credit for what you fucking did and get promoted, and you're not, right? Yeah. So, same thing, right? So we do this thing where there's not even just recently they've added an interview to this process. But if I was going to the next level, let's say when I was going for assistant special agent in charge, right? I would write up these KSIs, and basically I would just put it had to be like a certain number of characters. Could be more than 500 characters. And I had to say what I did. Here's the problem. Here's what I did. Here's what happened. I would look at these things and say, wait a minute, that was Joe Smith's. That wasn't his. And when I would bring that up, he was part of it. He was part of it. So now these guys are getting promoted up the ranks and really never having accomplished their own investigation, never learning the job.
Yeah.
Never learning the job, but yet getting promoted. So now when I get to Andy McCabe and I'm making a decision about a FISA order, I don't even know what the fuck a FISA order is, but I'm making the decision.
Yeah.
Like broken, right? Yeah. So across the board, you look across the aisle at the prosecutorial arm, same thing.
Like they're in way over their head.
Way over their head.
Yeah.
But they're the guy now. They're the person of the hour.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at federal judgeship or they're looking at something else. So they're on stage and they got to make it happen. In the meantime, the street agent, the rank and file is going, I just spent 9 months of my life working 20 hours a day, making unbelievable recordings, developing sources, paying out sources, doing surveillance, doing counter surveillance, doing wiretaps, wiring up informants, interviewing, witnesses. And that guy just totally fucked it up.
Yeah.
Is
it a fair assumption to say that there's a significant percentage of federal judges who fall into that category?
I would say that there are judges that are selective about what they'll listen to and what they won't, and they've got the greatest power in the world. Depending, and they're all they're all presidential appointees, right? Yeah. Now, there's cases that have been wrecked because judges have thrown out charges when they should not have. But you start to question whether or not the allegiance is to justice or is it to the president or the
political party or whatever. Yeah.
Period, right? Like, definitely, there's cases about that. But I think most federal judges are career prosecutors who chose not to go into practice, right? So they move up. And being a federal judge is not a bad life. Work 2 or 3 days a week, take the summer off, and you're maxed out at, whatever it is now, $350 or whatever, and they can come and go as they please. They do a great job, but they can control and they can affect a trial for sure. Yeah. And they can affect the plea. Like, listen, man, you're dead. Like, I would take a plea here, but maybe they shouldn't be recommending that.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be allowing the system and the process to go for a jury or through a jury or at least through proffer process where we're hearing what you have to offer. We have a client right now down in Jacksonville, Florida, that just got totally fucked by the system. Totally fucked. Nobody wants to listen to what he has to say. So we've taken him on, and I'm looking at the things that he provides. If I had that as an agent, I would go through Florida and put a lot of politicians in jail. This guy, but nobody wants to hear what he has to say.
Can you expand on that at all, or is it kind of a client?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one because it's in the process. But, we can go through. What's important is getting that information in the right set of hands. And I think what I can do differently is I still have enough reach back in the organization. And you know how it is. You look back at SEAL community, you look back at what I do, right? If you have the reach back and you at least have a relationship that's been built, be a fountain, not a drain.
Yeah.
We know too many drains, man, right? So if I can go back and say, look, would you just take a look at this? I'm not asking for any favors. I don't want any favors. Am I crazy? Am I looking at this wrong? And 100 out of 100, the guys I know that understand the process are going to be like, dude, you're spot on in this. And here's the approach that I would take.
Yeah.
Go here, go here, go here.
Yeah. In a scenario where, the senator case gets dismissed or something similar where you have just a mountain of evidence of corruption and a judge or a DA or whatever says, just fucking get rid of it. Is there any recourse for you at that point, or is that's it?
You can go, there is recourse within Department of Justice, right? So as opposed to being at that U.S. Attorney's Office, you can go to, we have units down in Washington, D.C. that are supposed to take another independent look. And they do. Some of them are really good about it, or they'll put together like a task force, right? To say, well, it really is a problem. Like campaign finance is a problem. Let's take it out of the locals' hands and put it down to somebody else. That's the only recourse, but that's not a guarantee.
Right.
Because you still have those people that are aspiring there too, right? Or moving through quickly.
Yeah.
So what I always did is just look, is there any other angle on this case that I missed because maybe we stopped, maybe we stopped investigating because we got to the point where we were entering into plea discussions with someone before they went to trial. And you know what? Do we really need to look at that? It doesn't do it. It's really not making a difference, at this point. But so you can go back to that, which is different, which sometimes not even the federal prosecutors would know because you didn't feel it was important for this particular set of charges.
Yeah.
So that's the recourse. And there are agents out there, and I can name a dozen of them that are out there that are just, and you talked about friends that that are just, they're hound dogs, but they're hound dogs with morals and ethics, right? With the ability to stay right at the line. And I'm not saying, you can go to the line. The line is fine, just don't go over it, right? And there are guys and girls that do that and do it well.
Yeah. Does the Bureau not have an internal affairs the way police departments do?
It does. It does. But again,
some of the people, so it's just this
again
house of cards that there's just no way around it.
If they want you, they'll bring the right people in to get you, right? But you had to piss somebody off along the way. And I had that experience. I had an experience where crazy. That happens, but there is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I probably kind of mischaracterized internal affairs, but just from if you run into a dead end here, there is some way to say, almost like an appeal process that.
Definitely.
But
kind of it's a lightly utilized misconduct process. You're not saying, Mike's a terrible person or terrible angel, but here's something that Mike may have missed that would have definitely affected the outcome one way or another.
Yeah.
And you won't get, if I've had that happen on that side too, and I'm like, no, definitely. Let's run it out. Make sure, get some more eyes on this thing and see if we could have done something different.
Yeah. I mean, that's at least encouraging, but it almost seems like piss in the wind comparative to the way things work and how they are and how it sounds like it's basically impossible to fix it.
I think so.
Can I throw a hypothetical at you?
Yeah.
So Bob Menendez.
Yep.
Seems like pretty cut and dry mountain of evidence of corruption and bribery. Let's say a judge, let's say you're the guy that's building this case on him. The judge last minute throws it out for whatever bullshit reason, and you have reason to believe that the judge is even in on it. Like, can you do anything then?
So funny, the first time around with Menendez, right? Judge Walls, that's exactly what happened.
Really?
His shit got thrown out. We knew that there was some relationship that was a little different. I'm not accusing him of anything. He was an old judge, like age-wise, and just not always with it, right? So that stuff, part of that, and when part of that indictment got thrown out, that was it. Now, you look at the history of Menendez and his rise to power in Hudson County, New Jersey, and then you look at who the judge was, there's definitely been there's a collision somewhere along the way. Good or bad, there was a collision, right? Yeah. So I think the way that we kind of did something about it was just hound dog agents, and I know the agents, and they just stayed on it, not with any malintent. They stayed on it, and they knew that every time this motherfucker got off, he was empowered.
Yeah.
Right? And he is. That little troll bastard, that's what he does, right? And
that just builds confidence, and he feels him.
And we just just envelop his ass, right?
Because he's fucked now, right?
He's fucked. He's going to jail, for a long time. Yeah. So his thing is just trying to negotiate that out. And, you hear these guys talk, tough guys, right? Yeah. They're like, well, if I could do 5 years down, let me tell you something. I don't care where you go or what you get. 5 Christmases, 5 Thanksgivings, 5 grandkids' birthdays, 5 kids' birthdays, 5 of your birthdays, right?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Well, and you're probably not going to be well received, as a corrupt.
You're a scumbag.
Senator.
Yeah, you're a scumbag who took money out of my pocket.
Yeah.
My taxpayer money.
Yeah. The Torricelli thing, just did he not go for re-election after that? Did he kind of?
Yeah, we shut him. We shut that down.
Yeah.
That portion we shut down. Interestingly enough, the system takes care of its own.
Yeah.
He became a consultant for the EPA, assisting with cleanups. So you can imagine Jersey, New York, the amount of environmental cleanups that we've had over the years, and that each of those had to be appointed to him by a federal judge.
Wow.
And there was a percentage of that. So, for instance, Ciba Geigy was a big pharmaceutical company in Jersey, all over the place. But Ciba had a huge fine levied of 80 million. Torricelli handled the cleanup and got 10% of that.
So he's just rolling in fucking money with never
was seen again, man. Just like he just put his fingers up and said, "I'll be fine. Don't worry about it."
Oh. I have a Mayor Matthew Scannapieco.
Yeah.
Was that another highlight case?
This is a highlight case, and this came out of nowhere for us. I got a lead as a young guy, a young agent. Hey, just go check this out. I don't think there's anything to it. Interviewing the ex-wife. So we went to the ex-wife. We went to the ex-wife and just sat down. Barbara, I don't mean to bother your time, whatever, but there's some crazy allegation that your husband taking cash from a builder. And she the way she looked at that question, and they were divorced.
She just
yeah. And I'm like, oh, Barbara, now I'm not leaving. She says, well, I can't tell you. And I go, now I'm not leaving until you tell me.
Yeah.
And we sat there for 10 minutes, and she said, I was never supposed to say anything, but I found, are you ready? $200K in cash and FedEx envelopes in his closet.
Wow.
And he promised me that I would get portion of that. I said, did you? She said, no, he's telling me he's still going to give me 20 grand. I said, I think we can get it for you today.
No shit.
And yeah, so we brought her on board, and then the case it went crazy. This guy was a Vietnam vet too.
Really?
Yeah. And he was this very timid, very nerdy accountant. And he got this job with the state, and I think it was I can't remember the job that he had, but it was a compensation fund for the state. He was working at making $100K or so, right? And just doing the right, on the surface, doing the right thing. One of the builders owned strip joints in New Jersey and corrupted him through those strip joints. And he wound up marrying one of the strippers, and then everything, cheating on the wife.
Yeah.
Pissed her off, right? And she was ready to tell us. Well, that turned into, when we searched his house, We walked in with a search warrant. Chris Christie walked in with a search warrant. And the first thing he said to us was, well, you can't go in my garage because it's not on the search warrant. So I go, oh, shit, the money's in the garage. And he's like, no. And I'm like, how much you got in there, Matt? And finally, we worked him for, my old partner and I, Bobby Cook, we worked him for, and this is where like what we were saying about relationship building. And even in that case, being that fountain for him, listen, we're going to work this. You're going to cooperate. You're going to do stuff. You're on Team America today. He was like, well, I think my wife, and his wife was 25 years younger, a stripper. He goes, she spends it as quick as I get it. So I said, see what I mean? Like, that's not right. You earn that money. And he goes,
he fucking fell for that. I mean,
I'm simplifying it, but
I don't mean to.
But basically, once we kind of got Matt, I understand, man. Like I know how it works because I had cheated on my wife, my first wife, right? So I did it, man. I mean, it hasn't been good for me, and he said, I think I got like $300,000 in the thing in cash, 1.6.
Holy shit,
1.6 in his garage in the old like big, like filing cabinets.
1.6
million.
And
he had no idea what he had. At the end of his time, he went to jail for a long time, and the sad part of the story is he was then found to have sexually molested his daughter.
Oh, wow.
And so he was whacked in jail in Delaware.
As he should have been.
As he should have been. And I looked at it, I'm like, oh my, look at the amount of money.
Yeah.
And he was going up to builders. That's kind of the example I gave before. You need 5 more lots, 15,000. Here's the shirt I'm going to be wearing. Make sure it's in that pocket when I take that shirt off and hang it up.
Wow. So strip club can't get a permit. They pay the mayor. He says, give them the permit.
Take care of it. Or a strip, in this case, they were trying to develop a bunch of properties in New Jersey. He had inns all over the state because of the compensation fund role. Yeah. And he would just say, look, I think you're making a mistake. Smart dude. So he would bring all the things that would make that not so smart administrator in the township say, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. Just give them the friggin' 5 more.
Yeah.
And then it would work, or master plan would be redone at the cost of taxpayers. And this was all over the state. These things were happening,
One thing I said, and I want to reiterate, like, I didn't mean to diminish your capability.
No. I didn't take it that way at all. No.
It makes me think, I'm assuming / asking, in that environment where the guy is panicking, like he knows he's getting caught, is it a lot easier to build trust because they're almost grasping for something to feel?
I want to be your friend today, and you don't have it. And I'm looking around. Nobody else looks like they want to. Yeah. They're volunteering to be your friend today. And even like what we talked about, like that track record of knowing. I was a known entity for the couple years I worked corruption there because, again, the Bureau, like SEAL team, like Ranger, battalion, anywhere, 2 out of 3 work.
Yeah.
And one dude just is so happy to wear the trident and say, look who I am, and doesn't do shit, right? We know that.
Yeah.
FBI, same thing. Probably FBI, it's probably 1 out of 3 work.
Oh, wow.
One guy does the crossword puzzle, one guy puts boxes together for the search warrant, right? So, like, I was never able to sit back. Like, I couldn't sit back and not go to work and do something.
So there's a high probability if there was a government official that was corrupt in your jurisdiction, they knew who you were and they were scared.
Me and Billy Waldy.
Yeah.
In New Jersey, Bill Waldy was the absolute best investigator I've ever met in my life.
What makes a good investigator?
Just dog it. Just never stop. Yeah. Like he never let that stupid little lead that most people would say, well, what's that going to do? Never let it go. And that would always be the one that would give him the next lead.
Yeah.
And he was great with people. I think that's the key, right, to anything, and it's definitely the key to interrogation. It's definitely the key into anything that you do. Family, leadership within your family, leadership within the organization. Doesn't mean that you're stepping up saying, we're going to go, get them. It's what you do.
Yeah.
It's what you do. Yeah. I just had the chance to be with Eddie Gallagher on a podcast, with Julian's podcast.
Yeah.
And we did it together. And I asked him, what was the deal? And all he said is, just fucking being there, man. Yeah. Like being around and doing what you're saying that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it struck home because that was really, when I look at the Bureau, that's what's missing. Like there's nobody that says, I'm in it for the Bureau. Like I want to do this. I want to protect this country.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing that. They're like, hey, if I do that, I can go to LA and get that desk out there and then LA, man, there's companies out there and I'll be a CSO for that company someday. That's what's going on.
Is there a way to fix that?
That system of not letting, I'm going to talk to you about what you did. I don't want to know where you were standing when somebody else did it.
Yeah.
What did you do? Yeah. And I guarantee you 90% of the people will have nothing on their own back.
No answer.
They'll have nothing on their own back.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
I know it. I mean, would you say that something like 9/11 happening smacks people awake to maybe take it more serious? Is that the unfortunate punch in the dick
that is the unfortunate punch in the dick. Yeah. And like all of a sudden, all the things that you remember not doing come flashing back. Yeah. Could I have been the person that missed this? 9/11 for us being right there, we really were Newark was actually the lead office because New York was decimated, right? So we had to jump in. And I can remember this dude here's the sad part, and I've said this before. The broken toys prior to 9/11, guess what they worked? Terrorism.
Yeah.
Because it was an intangible piece. Like, well, maybe some guys talk about, well, no, we don't fucking know what that guy does, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it became like there was guys that would just, we would joke, like, hey, anytime we didn't see so-and-so, we would start calling the emergency room after 2 p.m. because he might be hurt. He's on his way home, obviously, right? Yeah. So I can remember shortly after 9/11, we requested a subpoena for some cell phones. And it was an important piece of cell phones. It gave us a ton of information. And I had served it, and I had brought it in to one of the guys that was our alleged terrorism expert and a big-time manager, a big boss. And I put the results, and I said, you need to take a look at this right now. We need to do something. And he picks it up. I'll never forget this. He picks up the form. He goes, how did we get this? So I said, I turned around. I thought he was fucking around. So I said, with a subpoena. And he goes, we could do that? And I was like, holy shit.
No wonder.
And I said, no wonder he's built, you know what I mean? Like, God forbid. Yeah. And God bless those people. But it's like, holy cow.
I definitely want to get into that day and your actions and just kind of how the subsequent months and years shook out in relation to that. But one other thing I wanted to cover before that is the Asbury Park Police Department.
Yeah, man. This was the saddest case of my
the specifics sound like something out of a movie.
Yeah, and it was a sad case because the main guy killed himself recently. Oh, wow. And I became really good friends with this guy.
Wow.
While he was in jail. I would talk to him. I talked to him. I feel like I brought him to Christ, and he helped me a lot with that too. But simple. Simple shit. This small squad of dudes and had that squad kind of culture, right? Like nobody else. You didn't need to know. You didn't need to know. I didn't need to know. We're taking care of business. And they were really good at what they did. So there was a lot of drugs that came off the street, a lot of cash that came off the street, a lot of arrests. But in the meantime, they were benefiting and they started to get sloppy. And so what happened in this instance, and what they were doing simply is I'd just writing fake search warrants and searching drug dealers' houses because who's going to say anything as a drug dealer, right? And then just ripping them off. Take your money, take your shit. Don't say anything. Next time, it's not your turn. Next time, it's his turn, so you'll get something back. Whatever. You'll get protected next time. What happens is the dude lifts a necklace and he lifts a watch from one of the drug dealers' houses. And he was the main guy. And this is my buddy. This became my buddy, right? And he takes the watch to his buddy, who's a jeweler, in a fucking mall. The guy's he asked him, change the band. It was the ugliest watch I've ever seen, but had to be worth a ton of money. Like all gold, diamond bezeled, big faced, with a gold, like a yellow gold band, whatever. Yeah. But dude loved it, whatever. So he says, change the band, change it to something normal. Well, the dude doesn't have time to do it, so he puts it in the cabinet. Well, the drug dealer whose watch was lifted, his boys are walking by that night and go, that's Life's watch. So they go in. And they say, that's Life's watch. And he goes, no, that's Phil Montgomery's. That's the cops. Well, jeweler's like shitting his pants, right? They go back to the mother of the drug dealer and tell her she calls the Asbury Park Police Department. They don't do shit for 2 years. We get it as like a urban legend. Oh, we heard this happen. So we just start looking at it like real quick. This is going to be nothing, whatever. We go to the jeweler to interview him with a subpoena. Hey, we know you don't have this, bro. Now, we're up on a wire from a previous set of shit that was going on. It's talking about tickling the wire. We're up on a great drug wire that some of these cops are protecting drug dealers. So we hit him with a subpoena. Dude, this is for the watch. We know you don't have it. We know it's a nonsense story, but we're doing some other work. We just want to clear this up, whatever. We walk out. 2 seconds later, he calls the cop. He's like, dude, they know about the watch. They know about and the guy freaks out over that. In the meantime, he's ripping off. He's just shaking down, taking like $50,000 cash, all their drugs, beating them up, the whole deal. He freaks. We get conversations. What are we going to do? Like back and forth. What are we going to do? Let's just kill the jeweler.
The cops are saying this,
and we catch it at a ShopRite. We're at the food store, and we know they're coming down there, and we take it down.
So the cops were going to kill the jeweler?
We're going to kill over a what, like unbelievable. The jeweler was, he was like so thankful, but he wound up losing his marriage, losing his kids, like losing his business, almost was suicidal. Well, Phil and I started to talk. Then Phil comes in. This is what I can't believe. Phil comes in and I say, Phil, you're in trouble. You're going to jail. Cooperate against the rest of the cops. Do your thing, whatever. So he's half in, half out. He comes in and proffers, which at a proffer, you're telling everything you did. The only way we can use that against you is if you lie. He fucking lies. So we take him to trial and just convict him on it. And I'm feeling bad because he was an Army vet, and I'm feeling bad. I'm up there and the judge is looking at me like, you fucking believe this? And I'm testifying, and I'm like, he lied. Here's how he lied. Here's what it is. And I felt like crap about it. He tried to kill himself that night. We saved him. We put him at Butner down in South Carolina, which is a psychological facility. They do a lot of therapy. They do all kinds of stuff. They brought him out of it just in November. He got out of jail last November. He got out of jail October 4th. He killed himself on November 1st.
Wow.
And I get a call, no other family, and I get a call from his sister. Jim, you're the only one. I went down, I did the whole funeral, everything. And in the meantime, I went back to my dad, right? Like, be a fountain, not a drain. Every life has value. Every life has value. And over a dopey-ass watch, which he would have paid for the other stuff, not nearly as long for threatening to kill somebody, right? But in the meantime, how many people would have ran that out? And I'm not blowing my own horn because there's other guys that helped me. My partners helped me on this thing for sure. One dude, Scotty Samus, is out in Arizona now, great dude. He was the main factor in this thing. But overall, like, what are we doing? Like, why aren't we plugged into this? That's what worries me about the way, not just the Bureau, but a lot of organizations are going.
Do you think that part of it is that there's so much of it that it, like, workload, caseload wise, it's almost like Border Patrol trying to catch drugs. Like there's
totally,
it's like you're getting 10% maybe.
You can't boil the ocean.
Yeah.
And I used to lead that way with my guy. Like, we can't boil the ocean. I wish we could help everybody, but we can't.
Yeah.
So we can only help what we have. Even with the business, like what we do, with Everyday Spy and J3 Global. I wish I could help everyone, but I can't.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. I just do what I can, when I can do it.
Yeah.
But there is a lot, Mike. There's a lot, and things are only getting worse. And law and order is a mess, and people are perfectly comfortable walking into somebody's business and stealing their stuff, and could care less because they know nobody's going to do anything about it.
Yeah, I know it.
In
that same vein, I mean, within the FBI, going back to kind of what these cops did. Have you ever come across any examples of FBI agents, like you roll in and there's 1.6 in cash, maybe there's 1.5 in cash found and there's 100 in my pocket now? I mean, that shit has to happen at least a little bit, right?
It happens. It's not often, but when it happens, it's like a devastating piece to it.
Yeah.
The problem with the Bureau too is that there's been just a boatload of sexual harassment.
Oh, really?
And just 1,000,000% unaddressed by leadership. How can you have a culture where you've got dudes that feel perfectly comfortable in their role as a special agent in charge, sexually assaulting, and nothing happening?
Yeah.
They'll just make they'll pay the victim, right? Hey, shut your mouth. If you make it to retirement, if you make it to retirement, here's a little piece of it, but you make it to retirement without any problems, we'll pay you more. And these are huge settlements.
I mean, is it like hey, if you sweep this under the rug, we'll promote you to this and move you to that office and bump you to that's what's happening.
You can go wherever you want.
Really?
And I came in the perspective, because I know a couple of these women, and the perspective is, this is what I wanted to do. I didn't ask. This is all I ever wanted to do.
What kind of shit's happening to them?
The minor stuff is the texts and the videos and the inappropriate comments and the trying to get them alone. The worst stuff is actual sexual assaults.
Oh wow.
Yep, that are covered. So I'm sure that happens in many organizations, but we're supposed to be. I came out of Quantico thinking we were knights in shining armor, and I left thinking, holy shit, we're tarnished.
Could you provide a percentage of 80%, 90% good, 10% bad, 20? Or is it?
I'm going to even go further. I'm going to say probably 98% good, 2% really,
so about like
really bad. Anywhere. Yeah.
But it's just that's the ones you hear about, and so people throw them all in.
And you stay away from the leaders that you're just like, you know what? There's no chance. This guy's not going to listen. So I'm not going to change him. So just stay away. And that's a problem because now that guy gets more and more empowered because nothing's happened to him.
Yeah.
Like for me, I had one where the dude, I made a phone call. I made a phone call to an attorney who was representing a client of mine on his cell phone.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, that attorney was under charges, big time charges for murder. He had had a couple of federal witnesses killed.
Yeah.
I have no idea that. I don't have access to it. What do? I go into our indices, look up that lawyer to just say, where's his phone number? Stupid on my part, but I did it. Make the call. That's it. I don't hear anything. A couple weeks later, I get called into headquarters, DC. I walk in, there's like all these analysts and investigators there. They're like, we know you're telling this guy what's going on in his case because he shut down when we tried to make a tape after you called him.
Oh, wow. So
I'm like, what? So I looked at everybody and I looked at the analysts who are usually younger and a little bit easier intimidated. And I said, you got professional liability insurance? Good. You better up your stakes because I'm going to sue the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And the boss is like screaming it. Well, it was a dude who wanted a piece of me.
Yeah.
And he saw his opportunity and went, nothing happened to him.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, it did because he went off to work for a company. And when he came back to the bureau to ask for help for reach back, everybody was like, fuck you.
All right, so undercover work I know is dicey in terms of a lot of the specifics and details, so I'll try to kind of skirt around anything that would be compromising or that you'd get in trouble for, but I'm curious on the kind of the mentality of it. You see, it portrayed quite a bit in movies and TV shows. Can you kind of, I guess, discern the difference between the two? Like, is it totally fucking bullshit, or are there a lot of realities portrayed? Or
embellished. Yeah, I think a lot of it is good. For me, it was disassociation, right? Disassociating myself, disconnecting myself from me.
Yeah,
which is weird in and of itself. I think our mutual experiences in other places with the military helps with that, oddly, to be able to do that. So it's more of a compartmentalized thought. So especially when there's a focused mission, which was always my motivation. So if I knew that this wasn't just some cameo where it wasn't adding value to the case or to the crime problem solution, I wasn't into it, and you could tell. There's times, especially on the financial fraud stuff. Like I'm like, so what the fuck are we doing? Like, this doesn't to myself.
Yeah.
But when it was more on the public corruption side, when it was more on the organized crime side, not just La Cosa Nostra, but other organized crime associations, I really saw the value of what I was bringing by eliciting that information.
Yeah.
And there might be like a hole, right? There might be a hole that good agents worked on for a long time, and they were like, the only thing we can't get is X. And of course, I don't want people to think if we're not, that we're eliciting information without having some information, some additional information before. are you predisposed to doing that? Has that person done those kinds of things before? If they haven't, you really got to be careful because entrapment becomes an issue. So for me, that was always the mindset. Okay, I see what we're trying to get. I see why we haven't been able to get it any other way. And again, it's part of the process. It's part of like that. What do they call it when you're like go from fists to knives to guns like that?
Crawl, walk, run.
Yeah. So basically, for me, it was the same thing. Like in order to get to the level where we can charge or we could do something differently, I'm going to have to be part of this because a normal interview wouldn't work. If I went out and talked to Joey Bag of Donuts and said, "Hey, what do you guys do? When you go out, fuck you, get the fuck out of here. I'll kick your ass." But if I'm like just around, and this isn't necessarily something I did, but if I'm just around, look at the best guy that ever did it is Joe Pistone, right? So Donnie Brasco.
Yeah.
And that is a really good, they compressed it for the movie, but his time spent developing that person that he was differently was amazing. And the value that he added to the organization is something that no one else could ever do. So it elicited the comments. I mean, shit, people got whacked over that. Literally got whacked over that. That's a good idea. So it's the same kind of thing. How are we improving? How are we improving security? How are we improving the country's safety through these conversations? And I might look different. I might act different. What I loved about the program in the Bureau is it was very, very small.
Yeah.
So many people didn't even have a clue, that stuff was happening.
Yeah.
And the Cameo side, there was a lot of people doing that, like make a phone call and hey, to a pump and dumper on a stock thing. That was great. But the deeper stuff was a lot more.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I love that shit because that's kind of what I did my whole career, really.
So how much of it is just straight acting versus tradecraft and learned Bureau skill set?
So you do go to a school, the Bureau runs by some pretty good people, including Joe Pistone used to instruct there. But a lot of it is how you are on your feet. Like, they really take a look at the ad-libbing ability and the ability to develop your own persona within the mission.
So can we do a quick scenario where like you test my ability to be like how they would see if you have it or not?
Yeah. I mean, so something as simple as one we used to use is grabbing a free cup of coffee somewhere. Mm-hmm. How would you approach that if you went into Dunkin' Donuts and you didn't have any money? How'd you get that coffee?
I would probably just take it.
Which is good.
Yeah.
But, for me, I would go through, I would look, some of the people would go through a whole some of them would be like trying to borrow money from people. That's not, because now we're attracting opportunities for people to identify us.
Yeah.
But more like, damn, something along those lines. Or people are like, oh man, I should just, I know a cop. Did cops get free shit in here? Because I know a cop, and then depending on who it was. So you could tell if that person could quickly kind of find other ways without, the big thing was always, don't stand out. Don't be the person that we remember. What used to crack me up about the Bureau, and we have those counter surveillance teams too that are pretty good. Most of them, they had twin little people, brothers. So a couple of dwarfs. And I used to question, like, what the fuck? They're the most memorable people. If I saw him and him
no way I'm
getting on the plane with me and then somebody standing their luggage, I'm going to be like, did you see the,
There's two of them.
Yeah. So what are we doing? So it's all about not attracting Undercover is really not attracting too much. You don't want to be the memorable one. That's what I think the movies do that a little injustice, right? Because Pistone was like the guy, It's really not being that guy. It's being the guy in the background that has a very specific value to the organization, whatever that looks like, whether it be, hey, I can retile your bathroom or I can hit the golf ball 300 yards, like whatever.
Yeah. Have you seen Ocean's 11?
I have seen it, but I kind of forget it. Okay. I think, was it a good?
It's a good movie, but what you're talking about, it reminds me of a scene where Matt Damon is coaching this guy. It's kind of, because they're robbing a fucking thing and they're pretending to be other people. It's kind of that same thing, but he's going through this little like checklist kind of that same way. He's like, be charming, but not memorable, be funny, but not too funny, like kind of that same thing. Like, work your way in and be pleasant, but don't be memorable.
Don't be memorable. And that's 101 at the school,
Yeah.
at the actual school that you go through. And there's a certification.
Yeah.
And we certify, the Bureau gets the opportunity to certify a lot of like other undercovers from outside. And there's some guys, you see people right away and you're like, whoa, man, this girl are really good.
Yeah.
And they don't even know it. And that's the best ones.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I don't even know. I'm just being me.
Yeah, that's why, yeah.
Yep, check.
Are there like hard and fast rules or guidelines that the Bureau puts on you in terms of the over the line limit of what you're allowed to do or not do to remain undercover?
Yeah, and the big thing there is having a really good handler that also is an experienced UC person. The Bureau puts on the stupidest shit as rules, so as opposed to, I can remember one time we had a dude that loved great expensive restaurants. And it was a dude that was valuable to not only the particular case, but for a lot of cases. And there was a big boss who just couldn't figure it out because he liked to get jumbo shrimp. The guy used to order jumbo, and it was expensive at this place. So he's like, I'm putting the jumbo shrimp limit. And we're like, at the cost of wrecking cases, we cannot be spending that kind of money on jumbo, like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So obviously knowing the big things that, and I didn't do this, but I know guys that like were on the verge of drug use and whether or not, how do you handle that? That was always one thing, and that's a non-negotiable with the Bureau. So you got to figure something out. And the dudes who figured it out were quick on their feet, and it's just like, fuck you, I don't do that. I don't put that shit in my body,
I'm
whatever.
a recovering addict.
Whatever. However they did it, but they did it great and quick. Fighting, like violence. There's organizations that have a penchant for that. That's how you prove yourself if you're quick with your hands. So what do you do there? Am I fighting you? Because you and I are together, or are they asking me to hurt someone? That's a no-go. So you got to figure that out too. And even like establishing your backdrop, right? Your backstop and your backdrop, like what's your criminal record look like? How do we establish that, and how good are you at knowing what the specifics of that record are for guys who have had those charges against them?
Yeah, if they start
and that's
asking,
practice
like, where
shit.
did you serve
exactly
for 5 years? And you're like,
and you have no idea, and you're like, camp, just it's over.
Yeah.
And that happens.
Yeah. So am I correct in assuming then that the Bureau would say we would rather it be a bust and we lose everything than you hurt somebody or do drugs or any of those things?
Yes.
What about banging a prostitute?
Oh, that's a good one, man. And we've had examples of that going bad, guys who did that.
Yeah. Because that'd be an easy one to be like, babe, sorry, I had to for work. All right.
Well, here's one, and I'll give you, and I won't mention any names, but recording devices are getting better and better.
Yeah.
Right. So, there was a time when they weren't that good, and they were difficult to figure if they're on or off.
Yeah.
So we had one dude who I was dear friends with, and we had a common history, a common work history, and things that we did together. Our upbringing, and left it on while he was banging a prostitute. And what do you do there? Like, what do you do from the ethical side, right? So
is that more of a gray area for the Bureau, or is that one of you're not allowed to do that?
You're not allowed to do that. Okay. And the dilemma there was simply, does that tape get lost?
Yeah.
It made no difference to the case. It really did no good across the board, and it could only wreck a marriage, right? So what happens there?
I mean, could you make that same argument for drug use though too? I mean,
you could, and it has been made.
Yeah, or even hurting somebody if you didn't hurt them bad.
And those have all been made, right? So there is I won't say a gray area. It's pretty damn black and white, but there is a possibility in there where you're thinking it's always the greater good. It's kind of like service academies with the lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do. What's the intent?
Yeah.
Right. If we're sitting around bullshitting, and you say you got a 3.3 this semester, and I say I got, a 3-1, but I actually got a 3-7.
Yeah.
There's dudes that'll turn you in for that shit. Well, you fucking got 3. But what's the intent there? The intent is to not make you feel like I'm better than you, And so I think it's the same thing with those kinds of things. Like what is the intent? Is the person doing the drugs in order to get high? Or is the person doing the drugs because if he doesn't, there's going to be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, so case aside, if it's a mob thing or a gangbanger thing or whatever, and the guy's like, snort that fucking coke or I'm going to fucking put your brains on the wall. Like, you're probably going to do it.
Snort that coke.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we're all out and you're the only, and you can't come up with a cover quickly for banging chicks and, at a strip joint.
Yeah.
And you can't come up with, you got to be careful there. Because if you go with, I'm actually go the other way. Well, all right, here's a dude. He likes, he likes sucking dick too. So this is perfect, and
you guys are great for each other.
Yeah, you guys are going to get along. Now you got a problem.
But I mean, so there's a million hypotheticals, but in that same vein, like if it's hey, fucking you execute this guy or I'm going to kill you, like what the fuck do you do in that case?
That's a toughie. We see the movies version of it, right? Yeah. There's some sharpshooter that. Yeah. At the last minute pick. Yeah. That ain't the way it goes down, right? So I don't remember any of those, but I'm sure they happened along the way.
So in a case
all in, you know. At that point you become a combatant, right? I mean, the case is over.
Yeah.
Well, the case is fucking over.
So you'd be expected one way or another to basically fight and kill the guys that are saying
absolutely.
Because if you went ahead with it, you're done, right?
You're done.
Like no matter what.
You're done no matter what. And you're not safe, you're exposing somebody that you might not know anything about. You're going to kill them.
Yeah.
Why? It's a test. Most likely it's a test. Well, at that point, that's a tough man. I'd wake up with in a sweat on that one. I'll probably will tonight.
Yeah. There's a movie I saw recently. Zach, if you wouldn't mind looking it up, Bryan Cranston plays an FBI agent undercover in the Miami coke scene in the 80s. It came out a few years ago.
Is that after Breaking Bad? Or
yeah.
Okay. What's it called? What's the movie?
I'm having him look it up. I can't remember the name of it. But there are, and that's where I just pulled most of those, or some of them from. The hooker thing is one of them. He manages to get it because he's married in the movie.
Yep.
The Infiltrator.
The Infiltrator. It's a fucking great movie.
It's a great movie.
I think you'd probably like it, or at least, to me, it seems like it's well done from your perspective.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of things that aren't, but
I like him, man. He's
such a good actor.
He's a great actor.
There's another scene that one of the things you said reminded me of it, where he's out to dinner with his actual wife, and he uses I'm going to ruin some of the movie for you, but whatever. He uses the excuse of why he doesn't want to fuck the hookers because he's engaged and it's his second marriage and he doesn't want to fuck it up and whatever. And so they're kind of like, okay, whatever. A few days later, one of the guys is goes into a restaurant and sees him with his wife. He's like, "Oh, this must be your fucking fiance," and he's like, "No, this is actually my secretary. It's her birthday." And
oh man,
because he's got a fake wife,
got to,
And so, so he, on quick on his feet, and this is all based on a true story. So. While they're sitting, he's like, "Yeah, it's her birthday. Fucking, why don't you join us or whatever?" And like 2 minutes later, the waiter comes up with a happy anniversary cake. And so you see this switch in Bryan where he turns into one of these fucking Colombian drug lord type of guys with a fucking horrible temper. Like, gets up and he's like, "Are you fucking retarded?" And like just starts berating this guy and fucking slams his head into the thing.
Man.
And his wife is sitting there like who the fuck is this guy? It's fucking great scene. The whole movie, there's a ton of really
I got to see it.
Yeah, a lot of the things that we're talking about are the struggles that undercover work has to entail.
It definitely does. And the other thing is there's not a lot you can share, which causes issues in the marriage, right? Because I can remember, like, I think we've been talking, we talk a little bit more these days about things, and I'll just be, she'll be like, why couldn't you, or I didn't know that, that kind of stuff, even now. But I liked it better that way because there's easy things to discuss, the kids and those things, but those are like, it's 30 years ago or whatever it was, 20 years ago. We don't need to be discussing that stuff now. And there's a reason, because I felt like I wanted to keep you out of it. Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, I was living right there." I mean, and they were in the middle of it. Even my family, like I said, my dad definitely was like, he just me being his son, right? So he wanted to guide, I think, a little bit, but I wouldn't even let him in at that point because I figured we had a ton more time.
Yeah.
My brother and sister, I think, are clueless to it, like just even to this day.
Yeah.
Even to this day, like, wow. Like I'll see my brother, the wedding the other night, all my West Point buddies are there, and they'll say something. He'll be like, oh, shit. Like, why didn't you share? Well, why?
Yeah.
Why would I share that? Like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
You'll blurt it out anyway. So.
Is there an element of, I guess, two things. One, did you ever find yourself not agreeing with you being asked to do something where you're like, man, I really, like ethically, I just don't think that I can or that I want to fucking do this for this type of person and, for whoever the suspected criminal is, but also being an Italian guy in that area, if it's a mob thing, like, I mean, if like I'm all like pure Viking blood, if I was going after a Viking fucking drug gang or something, like I can see how there may be some conflict or bias or, you almost showing and feeling a lot of empathy for who you're, essentially betraying.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's the reason Hoover never used to send people back to where they came from.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I always used to think about. I had a couple of phone calls or things that happened where I was like, damn, it used to be a kind of a joke until it wasn't. Like, I had one buddy of mine who used to, every time he'd see me, be like, am I on the flow chart? And I would say my answer was always, well, I wouldn't tell you if you were. You wouldn't? And he was really insulted, but he was on the fucking flow chart.
Oh, wow.
So now the joking is my way of kind of dealing with it.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you anything, but I was
Also
thinking
not
I kind of told him. I kind of thinking I was telling you because you're on the fucking flow chart.
Yeah. It's like, have you ever had a threesome? If I had, I wouldn't tell you.
Exactly. And this same guy, he ran hard.
Yeah.
And so he was always around those people that we were looking at, right? So I was always like, why would you put me in this situation?
Yeah.
Funniest thing about him, little dude, little tough, little Italian guy. Exactly. And we're at this old nightclub, not a nightclub, it's a beachfront bar that actually got blown out in Superstorm Sandy.
Oh, wow.
It was great. Joey Harrison Surf Club. And we're there one day, and our days would usually be like Friday into Saturday, and we're drinking, and he always had the Tito's in lemon. I have the Tito's in lemon. It's good for you. I go, how the fuck is that good for you? It's not good for you. But he loved it. He's drinking. And he looks over, and there's just a big dude, like big, ripped guy, tall, and sitting there. And he looks at his shoulder, and he's got a tattoo of Jesus Christ. And Jesus is kind of looking up, and Jesus' eye was crossed. So he feels this is the time he's got to tell the guy that. And I'm like, Dario, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. He walks over and he's like, can I tell you something? And the guy goes, yeah, what do you fucking got to say? And he goes, your tattoo, Jesus' eyes are crossed. And the guy goes, and I'm shitting my pants. I'm going to guns. And he goes, you're right. Holy shit, you're right. And then he starts buying rounds for us.
Oh, shit. God, what are the odds?
There he goes, see? You got to tell a guy he's got a fucking bad tattoo. You tell him. I'm like, oh my God.
How does he not know that already?
How does he not know it? Look at it. He's got to tell him.
Yeah.
Look, we got free drinks, he said. So
that's fucking wild.
Good stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I guess, did you ever find yourself feeling empathy for the people?
Some of the guys I knew, there's a high school buddy of mine that got into life and didn't really, I never thought he wanted to do that, but it was the way it was from his family. And he wound up getting jammed up, something pretty bad happened to him where he was forced to do something to murder somebody, and not forced, but he was in a situation where most of us wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And I always felt bad for him. He spent some time in jail, and I tried to go when I could and see him. There was another dude who got caught up in one of our cases in New York for mortgage fraud, and reached out to me. Like during the search warrant, he has an agent of mine call me. Now, what do you do there? Because you've got your people that are, but it was my friend. He was my friend, and I grew up with the guy, so I was there for him. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I mean, I told him, there's not a damn thing I could do. You're in jail, but I'll be here.
Yeah.
If you need something, or you need guidance, or you need a lawyer, I can give you the right ones. And I gave him the guy we talked about, which helped him. But those kinds of things. But my uncles, my dad's my dad's father and his brothers were all in the life, right? Yeah. So my dad took a different turn. Some of his other brothers were doing that, and I can remember going to Quantico. My dad was already passed, and we had to do this report on a different agency. Like, you would pick any agency you wanted to. So okay, so I picked ATF, and there's a book, and they got the book as a paperback, and I start reading a little bit, and then I go right to the pictures because I was bored with the book, quite honestly. And there's my Uncle Frank, and it says New Jersey's most notorious bootlegger.
Wow. And
I had no idea. So I called my mother, and I said, why did you think that wasn't important maybe to tell me? She's like, well, Dad and I both didn't want to make you nervous. I go, well, now I gotta say something, And she's like, well, you didn't know him.
Yeah.
You were a baby when he died. So, but there's the crossover, and bought my first house I bought after the Bureau. We bought it from a known mob family.
Yeah.
And my bosses came to me and said, it was a beautiful little house in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. We want to see all the paperwork on that. You didn't make a payment. I'm like, come on. You know what I mean? That's what day one on the FBI. I'm going to go ahead and buy a house from a known mob. I said, they're all over the place. I mean, anywhere you go, there's a guy who either says he's in the mob or is in the mob. Yeah. I bought the house. It was a deal. I was in a bidding process, and he accepted my bid. Well, he accepted it because, fuck you. No, he didn't. Yeah. So that, I think, was Hoover's always designed, not to send you back to a place that you grew up in, especially as an Italian-American in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. But, so with that, I mean, is the mobster life, is it that prominent in New Jersey and New York?
It still is. Yeah, it still is. And interestingly enough, the Bureau goes to these areas where they're like, well, organized crime doesn't exist anymore, so we'll slow down.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's different.
In what
but
way?
It still runs. It's just not the code isn't there anymore, so they'll turn each other in left and right,
really?
which is good for law enforcement.
Yeah.
They spend a lot of time doing different things. Atlantic City was always a big piece, right? Now that's straightening out quite a bit. There's some developers coming in there doing the right thing there.
Yeah.
So there's really nobody to shake down there. But there's other sections where it's still like it was yesterday. It's still old school.
Are the revenue streams similar or the same?
Different now because they don't mind going into the drug world.
So what was it before? And
total bust out extortion, racketeering. So your gambling, your women, your booze in the old days, and then bust out, business bust out. So credit card bust out. So I take your business. I come in, I take your business. I tell you first you're going to pay me a little bit of money, and then I just take all your credit and I blow it out, and then I leave you with shit. Wow. That still happens.
Damn.
So the protection stuff still exists. I mean, it still definitely exists.
And so if that business owner tries to turn them in, then they're just going to kill them.
Yeah, or at least
scare the shit.
These are sheep, man. So you punch somebody. How many people? I wonder what the percentage of people ever got punched in the face. Yeah. Probably not many. Probably not many.
Very few.
So you crack them in the back of the head. And then there's the mob. Also, it's become technically more proficient. The scams are better, what they do, and in regular businesses. We had one case where a guy invented his own. It was a skimmer for his oil company. So he was a delivery. He had an oil company that not only delivered to residences, but businesses and boats and all these different things that still needed that. And he invented something that he put on, so he would pump you for $2,000 worth and only put $500 in your tank.
Oh wow!
So then you're not paying attention. The next week, oh shit, I'm really running hard. And he did this to the level of millions of dollars.
Wow.
Well, he wound up, when we convicted him, it was a crazy search warrant. We convicted him. He tried to turn his wife in. She did it. And this is a mob guy, and now he's actually, he was a Italian citizen. So we deported him there. The closest he could get to America was, the Atlantis resort.
Yeah.
And so I was down there on vacation one time, and I'm like, oh no, and I see him, and he's just glaring at me. I'm like, oh Christ, so it was an uncomfortable couple of days for me.
Is there a lot of gang rivalry between like street gangs and mobsters and, territories and all that kind of shit?
Not anymore. That's kind of settled down. I mean, New York's just getting overrun right now by immigrants. I mean, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah. I was just there 2 months ago.
Yeah. it's dirty again. It's dirty.
Yeah,
and
it's very different than the last time.
Totally different.
Yeah.
But like the mob has stayed, they do stay their own, they've got other ways to do it. Title theft, white collar crime. They figure out, they move and shake. Nobody wants to work, I mean.
They can do it from their laptop and fucking.
They don't have to beat anybody's ass anymore or threaten anybody, and, a couple of my old sources are very good friends now. And they're out of the, they're out.
Yeah.
And you can get out now. That's the other thing, and they tell you stories about how it's changed even, the wannabes and people who are thinking they're more than they are. And then they wind up running into somebody who really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those days are not fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I've got some Patreon questions here.
Yeah.
Kevin says, is there any feeling that simulates the feeling of being undercover?
Yeah. All right. You're left lane on any major highway where you live, Kevin, and you're hauling ass, and you don't have your driver's license with you, and you see a cop in the left lane. You know that feeling you get? That's the fucking feeling you get all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Like nonstop?
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Anxiety is you are hypervigilant, and we both understand hypervigilance, and it could affect your ability to make a good decision if you're not headspace isn't right.
Yeah, like paranoia that can lead to panic and then making a shitty
Everybody
decision.
knows who you are all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they got to know. How could they not know?
Yeah. He also asked, what was the most effective way for you to tell if someone is lying? Eyes, body language, or your overall feeling? Or just that people suck at lying and you can't tell the same story multiple times?
There, bingo. I love that. And one of the best interviewers I ever learned from would ask the same innocuous question over and over again, and then you just see it change.
Would he ask it the same way? Or
No, he'd mix it up. Yeah.
Can you give me an example?
Like, hey, you said, let's just take a basic bank robbery or something like that. Hey, you said you were actually at your daughter's school for that play when that bank got robbed, right? I'd be like, oh yeah, definitely no. And then you throw something in like, was that morning or afternoon? Just to get it. Oh, that was the first thing I did in the morning. We went out and then later on, so that afternoon play, and the guy would be like, yeah, they have to play. Just that kind of flow built into a whole bunch of other stuff. When you, and the other thing is when you know somebody did it, you never let them say no. You never let them deny that. And it doesn't have to be angrily. Like just as simple as, I wasn't there. I was at, all right, listen, let's not say you weren't there because you weren't there. I don't think you were doing what we're accusing you of doing, but you were there, right? Yeah. And you'll see like, oh yeah, I was there. Now I'm your friend.
Yeah.
Right. And then later on, I wasn't, I didn't. And I always go like, stop, we're going to do this. No, that you were there. I got pictures of you there.
Yeah.
Here you are right here. So kind of that kind of thing is just, you could immediately set their tone, their baseline of when they're lying to you.
It's like you're funneling them into.
That's it. Yeah. And people are uncomfortable, right? Yeah. If you're talking about something that they did and they're lying to you about not doing it, they're totally uncomfortable about talking about that.
Yeah.
So they'll change that topic. Like, do we have to talk about my daughter? She's my everything if they molested the daughter. And that shit happens all the time. And then, the other thing is minimizing is the most powerful tool for lying in the world. When you give them an out, they did it and you're like, well, this is a sick example, but I give it all the time because one of the best interrogators in the Bureau taught me this too. You're talking to a child molester and he would, he wouldn't, I don't know if this actually happened, but this is the example he would give. He'd say like, hey, the way she was dressed, I don't fucking know if I couldn't do that too. And then all of a sudden, like you're building some relationship that a sick ass relationship. You want to go crazy on anybody that you're talking to, but you have to build that out. Yeah. And mirroring, I mean, mirroring. I mean, mirroring is, I've seen it be the most important thing. You're going to tell me different. If I've even put my hand out like yours, we're going to talk differently. And that's the thing. If people don't accept the mirroring, they're fucking lying to you. If they try to change the way they are, they're lying to you.
So if I'm asking you, and so I sit how you're sitting, and then and so now you keep changing it every time.
If I change out, and I don't want to be, but if I'm engaged and I'm telling you a story that's meaningful to both of us, I'm going to stay like you are.
Yeah. Did you ever run across people who understand those concepts so well that they're much more difficult to interview or interrogate?
The hardest thing in the world is a person who can stay quiet.
Yeah.
When you're interrogating them.
Like they just won't say a fucking word.
Nope.
No matter what.
And they'll mirror your shit.
They're just fucking with you now.
That'll drive you crazy.
Yeah.
And that's just, again, because we do, as human beings, we don't like to have that. We don't like quiet. It's hard to be quiet. Yeah. You always want to fill, let me fill this in. One of the ones I think was the most powerful to me that I did, I didn't say but a couple words. It was a serial bank robber who was getting like violent, like shooting and stuff. He was going to kill somebody, no doubt. And they were going at him like crazy. And I just walked in as a watcher. Like, I'm coming to fill the time. Like, I don't have anything to do with this. And I just sat there. And it was a good, like, maybe 2 or 3 minutes with nothing else. And then it got longer. It got to 10. It got to 20 minutes. And then finally he says, "What the fuck are you doing here? Are you an attorney?" And I was like, "No, I'm just here. They told me I got to stay here." And then he just gave us an in that they understood watching the camera. There's something he did or said that they came in and said, "Oh shit, thank you." And I didn't even, I'll be honest, I didn't even know what the fuck I did. Like, I didn't. I always take it back to, do you remember the series The Shield?
I never watched it.
Vic Mackey, it was the first episode ever is where I knew I was hooked on it. And it's an LA gang squad, right? Yeah. And this guy's like a corrupt leader of it. And there's two like kind of nerdy detectives going at this guy who molested a child. And they're going back and forth and nothing. So they come out and he says, "You mind if I take a shot?" And like the whole precinct is cleared out. And he wears the leather jacket and the T-shirt, and he's a tough-looking guy, shaved head, the whole deal. He walks in, and he said, he says, "You must be good cop." And he says, "No." He says, "Good cop and bad cop went home for the evening. I'm a different kind of cop." And he covers the camera, just beats the shit out of it. And so it's like, to me, it's kind of the mirroring and minimization always got me to the point. And then, of course, overseas, if you start talking about their kids, it's a different ballgame. They give a fuck about any woman they ever slept with, any family member. Start talking about their kids. In the Asian community, it's the parents or the aunts and uncles, right? So it's knowing the culture and being able to just exploit the shit out of the culture without crossing the line. I'm not saying I'm not saying things that happen, but they needed to happen when they happen for the timing of it.
Yeah.
From my standpoint.
From the overseas stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Needed to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would challenge any of us on that.
Yeah, I agree. Claire is asking, what are your thoughts on the Mar-A-Lago raid, the un-PC version, if possible?
Totally unnecessary, totally weaponized, no need for it. And I wouldn't care if it was his or her. I didn't care which way they did. No need for it. It's a simple process. There's something, it's a, what the hell is it? It's a specific type of subpoena that you can serve, and it requires either a proof that you don't have the documents or the documents before I leave. So I can serve that one agent, 2 agents at most. I walk up to the house. Here's what it is, Mr. Trump. We're going to sit right the fuck here until you give us either a denial or a proof that you don't have the documents, or that's what could have been done.
Yeah.
Instead, it's a pure intimidation to make these commercials that we're seeing. And I'm not going either side. I think we got 2 terrible choices today. I mean, I really honestly do. I think we got 2 terrible. There's one that's probably there's one that loves America. There's one that doesn't. You can figure it out. The audience can figure out who that is. We'll see. By the time this comes out, we'll know who it is.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. But I
hope.
No need for that shit. Yeah. Like we've never done that. We never do that. Some of the charges that were that actually were filed against them, we've never used before.
Yeah. Well, so that begs the question then, 2 questions that I would have. Who or how would CNN have gotten the tip to be there to cover it? Would have had to have been from the inside.
From the Bureau, yeah, 1,000,000%.
And so what malfunctions within the Bureau had to have taken place for that to have happened and be weaponized to such a degree?
There had to be a meeting for that to happen. There had to be people talking to other people to say this needs to get out. Now, I will tell you in my career that's happened with mostly public corruption cases, and there's a reason for that, right? On the perp walk side of the house, we want you to see, your voters and taxpayers want you to see what this person did and why they did it, right? So is it right? Are we supposed to do that? There's definitely a no comment. There's a absolutely no contact with the media, hard and fast rule in the Bureau. You do not talk. There's one person that can. It's who's ever the public affairs person in that office. And normally their response is always going to be, sorry, no comment. So somebody had and many of us have contacts in the media, right? Many of us. I mean, you can't do your job without those contacts because they have information that you might not necessarily have access to, or that you didn't put together from cases in the past or the person in the past. So we have those contacts, and that's okay. It's like doing an interview, doing part of your investigation. When you share those things with them that they can share with you, you can't share with them.
Yeah. Well,
or shouldn't be.
Yeah. You mentioned it happened before. There are instances, from your judgment and perspective, the other times that it happened, the charges were more warranted and it made more sense than this case?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this case, like I said, there's other options. There's other ways to accomplish the same end.
Right.
And we pride ourselves on exhausting all those other options before taking the late, like we're talking about with a Title III wiretap.
Yeah.
You got to exhaust everything else. That's all.
Yeah. I don't know if you can answer this. Ashley asks, what's the funniest story you can share from working undercover?
Ooh. How about we go just into a funny story about a public official?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. There's a lot of funny stuff that happens because people are not in undercover world. People are not who they say or who they're putting themselves out to be, toughness wise, or we had people literally shit their pants, when they were saying who they were and how good they were, and when we approached them on something from the undercover role. But one of the funniest things was with Chris Christie.
Oh yeah.
So everybody knows big fat Chris Christie, and he still, anytime he sees me, he's not pleased with me, but we're okay. Because I talk about his lavender sweater that has at least 3 areas for rolls and how big it has to be. But we're sitting after we had just won the 100th public corruption trial. All of these. The other thing I pride myself on is I only had one guy ever not shake my hand after I either arrested him, interrogated him, or put him in jail. One person.
Oh, wow.
Over hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And this was the trial of the guy who didn't shake my hand. He told me he hoped I died an awful death, and I said, what other kind is there? And the judge loved it, and sentenced him 2 more years. But anyway, we get back from this trial. We're sitting. I'm entertaining the young prosecutors. These are all young, mostly Ivy League. They don't have much of a sense of humor, and I'm telling them jokes, and they're laughing and laughing. I said, okay, I got to be back in the office. I got one more joke for you. How come the New York Yankees cannot sign any more free agents? It's like we don't know. I said, because that fat fuck Chris Christie took all the pinstripes for his last suit, and nobody laughs, right? And he's standing right behind me. So I turn around and he says, "Get out of my office." You can't kick me out of the office. I'm running the FBI office. He says, "Get out." I get in my car. We only had like 6 cell phones for the whole office.
Yeah.
I had one of them. Right? It's just lighting up. It's my secretary, like the direct. It wasn't the director. It was this other guy, Sean Henry, and great dude. And I pick up the phone. Hey. And he's like, "Did you say it?" I go, you know I did. He's like, "We're dying. We're laughing our ass off. You're suspended for 2 weeks."
Yeah, that's fucking great.
But yeah, there's a lot of funny stuff on the undercover world. Mostly people just not being who they said they were. And that's tough when it came down to it.
Yeah. Rachel wants to know, what did you carry for personal protection while doing undercover work?
Ooh, nothing.
Really?
0.
Ever?
Yeah, a knife, maybe whatever everybody else was carrying. If they had a gun, I carried a gun.
Yeah. Would you carry? I mean, is that a government issue, or do you have a way to scrub?
So they would write it off on like a personally owned, but it would be approved by the bureau too, and you had to qualify with it and all the things that go with that, even on that side, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
but we would run into that, you would realize 2 or 3 guys are carrying whatever, something different, and we would grab one. We'd grab one and get trained up on it, and next time, hey, I went and grabbed one of these, or something. But if they were just knife carriers, if they were just good with their hands, you know what I mean? I wanted to carry some other stuff, but I didn't want to escalate it. Yeah. I didn't want them to think I was more aggressive, because then that lends itself to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess with the gun option, is it at all realistic to worry about if it's bought in your name and that they fucking grab it and have an ability to find that you aren't who you say you are? This is a fucking,
always backstop really well. So we have the Bureau has a whole unit that does that.
Make sure that you're
backstopping constantly.
Yeah.
So they're constantly going into, they're going in deep web for us, because that's where you're going to find it. Like people think the dark web is where you find that stuff. You don't find that shit in there. If you want to buy, this is terrible, but if you want to sex traffic or something, that's dark web. But the deep web is just shit that I'm able to remove your footprint from that deep web. People think that, just what's out there, oh my God, I'm getting these messages about, I didn't even order this thing, and that's just open source.
Yeah.
But the deep web has your stuff, and I have a client right now who's affiliated with those Housewives, those shows, and getting destroyed by somebody who she pissed off online. And I know we're making progress when he's getting more aggressive, but he's losing ability. He's losing his contact.
Yeah.
So that's the deep web. So the Bureau's on that constantly, especially when we create a personality, whether it be for just, a cameo role or a deeper undercover role. We're gonna scrub all of that, or we'll leave some of it out there, which is even better.
Yeah.
We do that for a lot of our high net worth. Or I had Saquon Barkley. I had when I was the Eagles running back. I had him for a while, and he's a good kid. I mean, no issues. I loved working for him. We did a lot of that so that people didn't know where he actually lived, and I could tell right away. I would point it towards a certain house, and then you'd see a boatload of people showing up at that house.
Oh wow.
Okay, it's working.
Yeah.
And then we removed that he moved, and he, now he's in a high rise and Weehawken, whatever. So,
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I guess with working with different types of informants, paid versus self-serving, how do you have to handle them differently?
Yep.
And how can you be sure that the information that you're getting is accurate, and how do you corroborate it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the paid guys are different. So there's actually 3 ways, right? So there's the guy who's working off charges, and that's the easiest one because it's their future lining up. So you could just leverage that off of, if you're lying to me, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, they're the most incentivized.
Go to jail. Yep, exactly. Yeah. You lie to me, it's not a big deal. You're going to go back in, whatever. Yeah. Your patriots, believe it or not, you got to watch them the most, because sometimes they have some other motive that lends itself to revenge. Somebody pissed them off, and they're just kind of, I'm just here to do America's work. And you're thinking, okay, is this about...
Easy, Karen.
Exactly.
We ran into that overseas all the time.
Right.
But it was, not a joking matter where people are getting smoked because they have a tribal rivalry or a family rivalry or what, and so it get fucking nasty quick.
Definitely. And the money wise, if you're doing it for money and you lie to me, I just fucking stop your source, and I can pay, there's guys we pay $6,000-$7,000 a month cash.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that, okay, you just don't get paid anymore. I'll pay the guy next to you because he's going to tell me.
Yeah. Is that the most you pay? Like what?
Nah, we got people that make a ton of money.
Like multi-six figures?
Yeah.
Millions?
Yeah. Over the aggregate? Yeah.
I mean, so what constitutes, what type of information constitutes that kind of payday?
It's mostly, it's organized ring stuff, like organized financial fraud, organized mafia stuff, organized gang stuff.
Yeah.
and this, the other part of that is you got to be able to work in it too.
Yeah.
So you can't just get paid for telling what's going on. You got to be able to jump in there. Yeah. Biggest example of that is a guy by the name of Solomon Dweck, who was a member of the Orthodox community in Brooklyn and New Jersey, and who, the way we originally caught him, he did. He cashed a $25 million personal check in the drive-through of a PNC savings bank. And the teller cashed it and wired 22 of it over to Israel. And the only way he got reported is because he said, fuck it, and he drove back through again. And that time they were like, for another $25 million.
Oh.
So he, he became a pariah, obviously, in the community, but not until after we were able to take down almost, I think it was 70 politicians that he paid off over time.
American
politicians, and then another 50 or so Orthodox Jewish cash houses that were laundering money. We see this shit with TD Bank that's going on now, that they just got killed for a $3 billion fine, and they didn't even, nobody even got fired for it. But the money laundering piece through these cash houses, through these banks that are not performing properly through their CTRs or their SARs. So when you look at Dweck, there was a guy that just made a difference. He was able to actually take down major rings of money laundering and of public corruption.
Yeah.
So
wow,
pretty cool.
So in I guess in the cases where you are doing these big payouts, how does that shake down from who's paying them, how that's accounted for? Yes, it's not petty cash, right? I mean, how does that work?
So it's mostly, so there's a board that meets on that. There's an FBI board, that Group 1 board they call it, and basically you're looking and reviewing expenditures. You're looking at what the progress is, what the return of investment is. And that money's got to be, when I pay you, you're going to sign a receipt, and then both of us are going to sign receipts that are there, and the money's going to be photoed before it goes to you. Yeah. And then we're going to make sure there's an IRS agent associated with you that you're paying the taxes on it. So if I gave you $30,000 today and your tax rate's 15%, the IRS is taking $4,500 bucks. Yeah,
that's something I would
and
not
setting
have
it aside
for you, I guess. But
because we've had people that before we instituted that policy, I think it's still the same now. We've had people that just never pay taxes, and they're like, I didn't think I had to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and you kind of look at it and you say, well, there's nothing in there that said you had to. Now it's very implicit. Hey, you must do this.
Yeah.
So, but it's a process, and of course it could. There's been times where people have taken a few bucks.
Yeah.
Agents have said, well, you paid. If I'm paying you $1,000, you owe me $200 back, and we've had that come. So, and it's happened.
Yeah.
Especially on the online gambling. Where you actually have payoffs from bookies. Yeah. So, I'll set you up. Okay, you're going to do online gambling with this guy. You get a password and a name, and then you're going to get your winnings. You're going to deliver. Or you're going to pick up whatever, and you're going to give it back to me, and I'm going to put it into evidence.
Yeah.
There's been examples where that shit never gets back to evidence, or going to trial. You have show money at trial. So I paid you, $35,000 over the course of X number, and the money disappears from the evidence room, and I'm hoping that's straightened out. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that's straightened out. In my day, I was all over that stuff, but there's people that weren't all over that stuff. So who the fuck knows? Yeah. It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Is there a most common way that money gets laundered currently?
It's still that shell company setup, man. It never goes away.
What's the Reader's Digest version of that?
So basically, I'm looking at taking money in, and you're looking at washing it for me, and we're setting up a shell company that has real business, whatever that looks like, whatever that real business is that can justify that amount of money. It might be the perfect example, if people watched, what the hell was that show? Ozark.
Yeah.
Right, where they bought the motel, and then they set up the casino, and they were refurbishing every room. And that's a common way of them still doing it. Now, if you could find TD Bank, you don't need to do that, because TD Bank, there was dudes dumping duffel bag fulls of cash on these tellers' counters. Not a cash transaction report was filed, which doesn't allow for a suspicious activity report to be filed. And they're just putting all that cash in. Nobody's talking about where it came from, and they're spending that fucking cash any way they want.
Do you know what?
Isn't that crazy?
Well, it is. I mean, it's hard to even fucking believe, honestly, because, I mean, anything over 10K...
Got to be reported.
Yeah, there's red flags to the IRS and everything.
Absolutely.
I mean, what was TD Bank from the higher up kind of just the, hey... From the top, like, don't fucking say anything.
Had to be.
Because we just want the money coming in on our balance sheet. And
had to be.
Yeah.
And we haven't gotten to the bottom of it. I mean, I know they paid their fine without missing a beat. The $3.3 billion, they just knocked it out. But no one's going to jail. Nobody's under investigation. So the bank is going to get punished. But what about people? Why is there no investigation going on? Why is there no established training plan in that bank? Every other bank has a fraud and money laundering division that works on that constantly. TD Bank doesn't have that. It's a Canadian-based bank. I don't know if that makes a difference. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
do you think that there's a chance that that there's politicians or judges involved that are preventing it from being investigated further?
It's Mike. I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
Wow.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I'm not saying it happens, but nothing surprises me. After what I've seen.
Yeah. On that money laundering thing, I know Ozarks is a good example, but just because I still have a hard time imagining how it works, I guess, or how they can pull it off. Is it because they're using cash and writing like receipts that are bigger than what they're actually...
And you're just looking to clean the money, right? So you're not looking to make money on it. You're just looking to clean it so that I can spend it. So if bank robbery, perfect example, you get 35, 40,000, people don't know, the robber doesn't know if it's marked. He doesn't know what's going to happen. So they've got to get that money in the system somehow. The big thing used to be casinos because that made the most sense. I go down, I play for a little bit, I get a marker, I get my chips, I play for a little bit, I give that cash, they take the cash, put it in. Now I'm done, and I go cash my chips in. Or I hold on to my chips for a month or 2 months, and then I go cash them in. That used to be a big way of doing it, and Atlantic City and Vegas could definitely support that.
Yeah.
And now you get casinos all over the place. That used to be a big thing. But again, it's not, think about it more like I just don't want this money. I want this money to not, just to be clean. I don't need to profit from it. I already have. How do I get it into the system? Any system. The banking system is obviously that would be the most desirable place to get it, which is why TD is impossible. But if I can set up these other businesses that are facilitating my lifestyle, right? I can still share on the profit and loss statement of that business. So if I take $100,000, pump it into a motel room, and that motel room does $135,000 next year, just that room, I did well. Yeah. I haven't had to earn $1 of that other money.
So an example would be, let's say you take $100,000 and refurbish a Airbnb or a hotel or whatever, and you're actually paying the contractor in that cash, and then that's how you're saying, okay, well,
he's writing your receipt.
Yeah,
here's an invoice, here's a receipt, boom, done.
But wouldn't the IRS say, well, where the fuck did that $100,000 come from?
If that threshold is in place, right? If they're not thinking, it's like anything else with fraud. When you jump over the top a little bit is when you get that attention. And I hate to say this, but that's just the way of the world.
What is the top?
It depends on the industry.
Yeah.
Right. So it depends. Like if you're a doc who's billing for services not rendered, and you stay under $100,000 a month, you don't get to be a whore and try to do more. Most likely, you're going to get away with that for a long time.
Yeah.
Because the Bureau and the IRS are going to look at that and say, the threshold on that, we don't look at that. None of that gets flagged. Even in the old days of options trading on Wall Street, before SEC put those computerized pieces in place where they didn't matter how much the money was. But if you were just staying under the radar, $100,000 of trades and, sharing options with your brother and hey, you should buy more.
Yeah.
But now that's getting computerized. I think the solution is exactly that, right? So a dental or a doctor's office or a lawyer's office should have something in place where they have to report through a system of especially on the insurance side. You can never stop the cash payments. I come in, who the hell pays for the dentist cash anymore? Nobody. Pay for a credit card. But if you have something in place where that POS system needs to report back, it's going to catch that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so as a hypothetical for today's day and age of being in that situation, let's say you have $500,000 in bank robbery money or drug money or whatever, and you buy a house as a rental property or let's say an Airbnb, and then you spend $500,000 in just completely redoing the whole thing and whatever. Like, wouldn't the IRS be like, where the fuck did that $500,000? Like, if you're claiming it as deductions because I spent all this money,
they should.
You don't have any W-2 or any. Like, I mean, especially with AI and algorithms, like, I don't know how.
It's a simple question too. It's a simple, investigative question. Or there should be. I think that's probably on the way. Where they can just take a look at that and say, hey, what's going down? How are we? It's the source and application piece. If you're spending more than you're making with no debt. There's something going on. And you haven't gotten a handout. You haven't sold a business yesterday. So
I guess it's just, kind of the same approach as the, drugs coming across the border. There's so much of it, they can only catch so much.
You can only catch so much and only do so much. And, Quantico, the first day, they go up to the blackboard and follow the money. And every type of crime, because it's all about it. Doesn't matter. The only people that don't, even that has it, but the lone wolf, school shooter, that's probably the only guy that doesn't matter about the money, but you will find something there too. If you follow the money, dig in, you're gonna get it.
So, since you brought that up, why don't we know more about the Pennsylvania assassination attempt?
Isn't that crazy?
Like, I mean, the FBI is investigating it, right? Do you know anybody that has anything to do with that?
I know they're on it. Yeah.
I mean, have you asked them what?
Yeah, they're just telling me, DiOrio, not today, kind of thing.
Really?
But yeah, we're not going to tell you today, but eventually we'll figure it out. But, I go back to the entire process. And here, I believe I could straighten the school shooting problem in 2 seconds, but nobody will ever go for it. And it's simply this. If I walked into any school, it doesn't matter where it is, and I went to the best administrator, the most respected administrator, most respected teacher, most respected coach, a guidance counselor, and somebody who works at the school and said, give me the 5 kids who are most likely to shoot that fucking school up. They'll give you the same 5 names. From there, social media monitoring is a beautiful thing. It's pretty easy these days. There's companies that are making billions of dollars doing social media monitoring. Every time the kid says gun, it's going to pop. What fucking parent is going to sign off on that? Nobody. That's why you're seeing parents getting charged now, because they're trying to kind of show people that you need to be responsible for what your child says or does. Says is more important. They have all these things like the HIB, I think it's like a harassment, intimidation, bullying charges that come out on kids if they act out or any kind. But that stuff, again, parents are coming in with lawyers and fighting that stuff to get it removed off the kids' records. I'm not saying we need to be up everybody's ass, but I think that's one of the solutions. I truly do. You geofence something. You geofence around a school that says anytime any kid mentions or types or works on gun, we're going to find out. We're going to know. We're going to talk to them.
Do you think logistically and in reality, right? Because there's in theory, but in reality, putting that into play would be more effective, both cost-wise and logistically easier to accomplish than just having a couple of armed, competent guards at every single school in the country?
No, I think it's going to be much more expensive to do the geofencing and the social media monitoring, much more, and which is why that's the easy. That's kind of the easy excuse not to do it, right? So, we don't have that money in the district. We're an emergency district situation already, that kind of thing. But look at the folks that have been working as armed guards. You know what I mean? And what guy of the caliber we need in there is going to want to liability wise put themselves in that situation around people that aren't trained. So you got the trained versus the untrained, right? And you're seeing people that don't want to run to the sound of the gunshots. I get it. I totally get it. I'm not saying that everybody can do that, but
I don't get it. I mean, to me, irrespective of whether it's a school shooter or not, if you're in law enforcement,
1,000,000%.
You should not be in that position if that's not your thing.
Totally true. But I'm talking like the guys that are hired, retirees that are looking to make a couple bucks. We've seen that. Yeah. Examples of not engaging. Law enforcement, no question about it. And they changed the whole approach to not waiting for the team to show, but just going. If you're the first guy, you're in. Right? You're in, you're going to the sound of the gunshots, you're going to neutralize as quickly as you can. And we've had some good examples of that. However, we're still picking up bodies. Yeah. Right? So how do we be more proactive about that so that we're not just coming up with technology and tools that helps me pick the bodies up?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a statistics major, but I do think that between former law enforcement and military, and if you were to have some sort of federal funding that you took away from, let's say the Ukraine funding as a fucking example, I think you could pretty effectively put competent enough armed guards in and around enough schools to where that the chances of it happening would be drastically diminished by doing that. I really do.
I don't disagree with that because I think the deterrent factor would be, and it gets around, right? You're always going to have, I would love to have a program in that also kind of searches out those people, those kids that are most likely to act out on it. And then, but again, that's a tough call. But doing what you're saying, and I train people that want to be there as the deterrent factor, and knowing that they're trained to do what they would need to do if something were to happen. Yeah. That's a proactive approach. You see somebody pulling a freaking rifle out of their car, walking in the parking lot, that's a sign. It's called a clue, fucking do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
I appreciate the insight. Can you share your experience on 9/11?
Yeah, definitely. So ironically enough, the morning of 9/11, myself and a guy by the name of George Voorhees, who were both running this evidence response team in Newark office, had a meeting set up at the New Jersey State Police's Maritime Barracks area. And the topic was, what would we do, where would we set a command post if some disaster happened? So as we're kind of getting together for the meeting, we're talking a little bit. There's 4 troopers, me and George, and another Port Authority cop there. And the first building gets hit. We see smoke. We don't see any impact or anything else. See smoke. One of the young troopers says, hey, my dad works there. Do you mind if we just take this meeting on the water? And so we're like, yeah, we got in one of their cutters. We start going across. We come through an area called Keysby, New Jersey, under the bridge, and we're just rounding the Statue of Liberty when number 2 comes directly over our head, Mike.
Wow. So you saw it?
Yeah.
Oh,
so anybody who's saying that didn't happen, trust me, I haven't heard that kind of sound since my old days. Yeah. And we just all looked at each other. We're like, fuck, man, we're at war. This is it. And we just started thinking about how many people were dead. Even just from the impact, because there was no really realization that those buildings were going to come down. Nobody thought that was going to happen. Yeah. Nobody. And as we get closer, Staten Island Ferry Port is there. We kind of pull in. We're moving and shaking. We're worried about this dude's father, but now we're worried about also helping out. We jump in a government car. We were at Battery Park Coast Guard Station, so we got a government car. We start speeding up Halsey Street over to Church Street, which is right near where the buildings were. I get out, they're burning, there's people jumping. All the shit that you read about, the heat, the smell, the whole deal, it just brought me back to a place I really didn't want to be in. And this all my stuff from the early 90s and into 9/11, and then didn't really come out until 2010 when my mom and Johnny McHugh died in the same 4-week period. That's when everything started hitting me. But anyway, so we get out, we're doing our thing, kind of moving people around, helping out, looking at the fire department, looking at the police department. What can we do? There's a couple FBI New York guys with the Ray jackets on, looking at pieces of the aircraft. There's that famous picture of the engine sitting out there doing it. All of a sudden, start to make our move. There's a Burger King on Church Street, and this is I'm a big Burger King fan now, just after this. And we realize, we hear the rumble. We run down the stairs. I thought we were like millions of flights downstairs. It was 6 flights downstairs underneath. That's where I said, I'm dead. Later. The soot, everything came out, the sound, the impact. I survived. I fucking survived it. I come out, I'm covered in the shit, start going into, what we do best, start pulling people, helping people, guiding the sheep along, getting them out. But I was fucking there at the time. and didn't come home for about 4.5 weeks on the pile. Then over to Staten Island, where we had millions of cell phones going off, millions of firefighter, geo devices going off, just IDs, rings, nobody, like very little human carnage. And it just was like, I just felt like the world was over as I knew it. And I think it's kind of represented that, as we move forward. But, my time there was just devastating.
Yeah.
Just to see the mass devastation. Like I had worked the bombings over in 97, 98 over in Africa. Yeah. I had done some work on that after the fact. Nairobi. And Nairobi, yeah. Yep. And I had done some plane crashes. I had done some of that stuff, and nothing like that. Like nothing like the feeling that I had of hopelessness. Just like the world is just, these motherfuckers did it. Like they got it, after 93, and we ignored that. We did fucking nothing about that. Nothing. Yeah. And then to be thrown into what we were thrown in after that, which culminated, 10 years of work for me before Johnny was killed over there. And just being transitioned from what I felt was a productive FBI career, what I felt was making a difference, to playing catch up, to being reactive. We had not been reactive. And then going through the process of seeing all the mistakes, the lack of communication, the ignoring evidence, the ignoring reporting, the famous electronic communication memo from a buddy of mine in the Phoenix office saying these fuckers they don't really give a shit about taking off or landing. They just want to learn how to fly the plane. And he wrote that and was ignored in the New York office. But it came full circle for me in just the stories. The people that I ran into, the people that were affected by it family-wise. I wound up marrying a 9/11 widow. I think most of it was because of my sense of trying to save.
Do you think, not to go full Dr. Phil on you, but the trauma bond thing?
I do. Yeah. I never thought that. I mean, I always thought it was an escape from my marriage, but I do believe it was something different. Yeah. I truly do. When we were brought together in a situation which was exactly that. Yeah. Like grief. I was running a program for the Bureau, which was international human rights and human trafficking and civil rights, and she was coming in for her grief program, and kind of like it was weird the way it happened. Yeah. It was an opportunity for me to get out of a marriage too, but at the same time, and the second one didn't work out all that well, because starting that way never really works out. But once we realized that we couldn't help each other, it was kind of over. But just the whole way that the world changed inside the Bureau, all of a sudden, like it was important to communicate. Why wasn't it before? How did that fucking happen? Like when we think about it as a military precision attack, that's the luckiest thing that's ever happened. I mean, just the timing. Yeah. These fuckers got it perfect. Yeah. And you think about the plane that went down in Shanksville, and the heroism on that plane of passengers. I was on a flight last night. It really wasn't that bad. It was in thunderstorms, and people are shitting their pants. Yeah. Can you imagine what those people must have went through? Yeah. Knowing that it was over. And then additional planes that we're hearing about now. We're seeing reports on additional attacks that were set up, that heroic people saved, people from doing that. Yeah. I don't know. It was a time that just brought together, I repurposed my thoughts, which led me into, evidence collection, in spots where you probably were. We were probably together, just didn't know each other. Yeah. And, the use of interrogation and interview skills, the use of what we talked about, being that fountain, not that drain, and letting people tell me what they needed to fucking tell me, right? And just moving forward through the life that was absolutely monopolized by that day. For me, it was just, that's all I thought about was how do we get better? I worked some corruption cases in between, which we talked about, do a little something here, something there, but that was always the focus. And then my buddy goes to, he was the brigade continuity team. So he was stationed at Leavenworth. He went over to transition. I think 101st was there. 10th Mountain was coming in, and he was there for literally 15 minutes. If you remember at the time, John McHugh, the Honorable John McHugh, was the Secretary of the Army. That's what they thought they were getting.
Oh, wow.
So hit him, left 5 kids behind, and I was scrambling again. Then my mother dies like 4 weeks later after a bout with Alzheimer's. So it like, and I'm still in therapy for this stuff, but I'm fucking doing good, man. Like anybody that's out there that's thinking that there's no chance for resiliency, fuck that. Get out and do it, man. There's no reason not to be doing that, you know, at all. Yeah. Do whatever you got to do and just get to the next day and things open up for you. Believe me. But that was a big part of my entire career. That was the middle 10 years. Yeah. You know, like a long time where I finally started to think back on what the mistakes, what we could have accomplished, what we could have done better. And, you know, it's funny, you know, Bustamante and I kind of came together from that, from, you know, the ability to kind of talk about things, and we're in business together now. Like that's not the, if that's not the, for me, if that's not the complete full circle to be working with a spook, you know, like in doing, like actually doing shit together, that's pretty crazy, you know? And I think it's God's hands is definitely in it for me across the board in my life. But yeah, man.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks. It's not an easy one, man. It's
heavy.
It brings back, you know. I mean, you know, details are our enemy sometimes, you know, but you got to deal with them.
Yeah,
it's been hard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's an adage or not. If it isn't, it should be. I mean, suppressing painful details is like you know, leaving a rock in your shoe. Like, just going to get worse. Like, you know, the longer you bury it and
amen
don't
to
deal
that.
with it, you know. So
yeah, amen to that.
Do you feel like the FBI right now is way better at identifying and thwarting would-be terrorist attacks comparative to September 10th?
I do. Yeah, I have confidence in that. I know we have gotten so much better at our intel gathering. We've gotten tons better at our communication and our collaboration with other agencies, especially the agency, you know, because I mean that's their whole deal, right? Intel's their whole deal. Develop an asset, right? Yeah. That's their deal. We do it as a need for a case. They do it as a business,
right? And
so the fact that and the way it's supposed to work is they're supposed to pass it off to us, and we're supposed to run with it, right? We just didn't. It was a fight, and I knew John O'Neill, the dude who is, I think he's all over that one movie, The Looming Tower. He's the main character in that, and they make him out to be somebody that he really wasn't. Yeah. You know, he wasn't. Half the shit's bullshit, but they got to do it because it makes him more of a hated character in it. But he did die in 9/11 after taking the job. Ironic, as the head of security for World Trade Center, right? So, I think we are a hell of a lot better, and I think if the public knew how many things we thwarted since then, they'd be blown away.
Yeah. Is the reason for not sharing more of that completely from a classified, not wanting to reveal how it was uncovered type of thing? I mean, can they at least share enough to say that, hey, this was thwarted without giving any of that away? So that
I think they can. I think they can, and they should.
They don't.
Yeah, and they really are. They're so worried about others gaining that information and utilizing. Listen. We both know these are sick people. Yeah. They'll figure out a way without us having to tell them what the last person did. Yeah. Everybody's doing something different to be that person, right?
Yeah, and each one of them that gets caught, they know how they got caught.
Exactly.
You know, so
exactly.
Yeah, I don't get why they don't do it more.
I think it would give the public a sense of security that we haven't had in this country and certainly don't have today. Yeah. That's for damn sure. Yeah. You know, everybody, that's everybody's concern, man. I mean, I know the grocery thing is big. I know going there and, you know, you think you're only going to spend $15 and $75. I get that. I get the border because it does affect national security. But what I really want to kind of have people feel good about is the success stories of what is going on in spite of who's sitting in the fucking White House. It doesn't matter. Or who's running the FBI, you know, or who's whatever, I mean, who's Secretary of State? It doesn't really matter. What matters is the rank and file is learning and doing and developing different processes to do things better.
Yeah.
And there's people like Bustamante and there's other people out there that are crazy at what they do and how they do it because they really do care.
Yeah.
It's good, it should be a promising thought for America, but it's not.
Yeah. Well, I think, things are so polarized and political and, between social media and just the way our lives work nowadays with technology, it's kind of this perfect storm of, it's just like it's so easy for people to get pissed off at each other and it just gets fueled over and over. And I know that there's some foreign influence, but have you heard anything about this potential or suspected, anticipated 2025 big, large-scale ISIS attack?
Yeah.
Or Al-Qaeda, ISIS?
Yeah, I've been reading on that and sharing some back and forth with colleagues.
Yeah.
I speculate as to where that's coming from right now, today, where that's coming from today.
Yeah.
Literally, and we know we're sitting on election day here. But I do think that the handle we have in the chatter world and what is being collected intel-wise by all agencies and by some of the cooperating and collaborating governments that we work for and with, and we know some of the capabilities that are out there the public probably doesn't know. Some of the people that you would think are the biggest pussies are out there collecting pretty good info, right? So I think it's something we need to be concerned about and be ready for, and what that's going to look like. And the military, our military is not where it needs to be, right now. Recruiting efforts are terrible, so that's not a win. So how do we get a win on the intel side? It will be a win, especially if the right thought process, is in charge of it. I mean, he's a West Pointer. I hate to rip on Lloyd Austin, but dude,
he's a bag of mashed assholes.
Yes,
in my opinion.
Yes,
he really is. I think
it's just brutal, and I hate to do it because I've had interactions with him. And he's a really nice man, but he's not the right guy.
I'm sure he is a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. He's a good football player at West Point.
And
what does that mean?
I don't have anything against him personally. I just think, as far as the right guy for the job, he's not it, and he's not even close to it.
Nope.
I would say the same thing about Milley when he was still in there. And
definitely.
And even a guy like John Kirby, I think, as a mouthpiece, I think isn't the right guy for that job. And I don't think reflects well on our military.
And it shows the people that are watching closely that we're not there.
Yeah,
we're not ready.
Not at the fucking helm.
Hell, I don't know. It's a disturbing time for American citizens.
It is,
but 25 is definitely something that's on that whole major plot and plan is definitely on people's minds.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what they're working on, but they're definitely working towards stopping that.
Do you think that there's been an increase in corruption in politics and policing, or has technology, phones, social media, et cetera, just made it easier to spot and catch?
Interesting. Law enforcement wise, I think there's definitely just everybody's taping everything, right? The first thing you do is pull your phone out and the cameras that they're wearing. So guys who are quick with their hands, and that's the way we talked about this. Cops who were quick with their hands back in the day and the way they were trained at the police academies foster some of that belief, right? And it's bad. It's bad to have that. I think there's new training programs that need to be instituted about how to talk to people. I always go back. I've been asked a million times about the George Floyd situation and what I would have done differently. It's pretty simple. Hey, Mr. Floyd, you're fucked up. Get in the back of my car for a couple minutes. Done. You're over. Nobody's lives are ruined, right? No, the way America looks at law enforcement now would have been intact. It would have been different, right? It's a simple thing as opposed to kneeling on. And the thing that bothers me, and you're a teams guy, right? If you saw somebody doing some shit that was going to be, across the board hurtful.
Yeah, you step in.
Just do, bro. Just get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't need to do this today.
Yeah,
Nobody did that for him.
Yeah,
for the cop.
Yeah, to me, it's I hate that I'm using this example, but I'm going to use it. Like the NFL, when two dudes get into it, like the team shows up and like, hey, cool the fuck off, go sit down. Like,
exactly.
It's not that fucking difficult.
And your life's, you're saving the cop's life.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. And everybody else around him's life. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm baffled to see that and see the dude just stand there like a deer in the headlights. Because
nobody wants to say anything.
I mean, it's crazy.
They're afraid like it's going to be looked at differently. Even with, I do a lot of work with law enforcement suicide, right? Like, everybody's afraid to go get help because they're afraid they're going to get benched.
Yeah.
Going to go on a rubber gun squad, which is going to happen, right? So how do we get that where we're talking more resiliency and help as opposed to you can't say anything because we're going to take you off the front line?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's the same in the military, especially special operations.
Yep.
As soon as you show even that slightest bit of what you're going to think and what a lot of people are going to assume is a weakness, and they're going to be like, I don't trust this fucking dude. You're out,
And the second part of that question, corruption, that shit's more prevalent than ever.
No. I think it's the worst it's ever been.
The worst it's ever been.
Why do you suppose that is?
What's in it for me? Yeah. That's the bottom line. What's in it for me? How do I get ahead? Because I couldn't do it myself. So I'm going to just take advantage of this situation and get what I can get. Nobody's getting caught. Yeah. That's how they feel.
So you would chalk it up to, as a society, as a collective, we're just more selfish.
Yes.
Yeah, and entitled.
And why would you want to go be $170,000 congressman or senator? Why would you want to fucking do that and put up with the aggravation and the character assassination that goes on yesterday and 2 weeks ago and everything that's going on?
Dragging your family through that.
Yeah. Unless you're an established person who's confident in what you've done, i.e. a Mike Pompeo. I mean, I told you about my history with Mike. Mike and I were squad mates in Beast Barracks at West Point.
Yeah. What was he like?
Funny. He's one of the funniest dudes I know. Yeah. And I'll share the picture of our squad.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, from West Point from the first day. But like, that's a dude who's a successful, established guy. So and he's smart as shit. He was number one in our class. Right. So there's no incentive. When he became a congressman from Kansas, that was nothing more than being a helpful guy. Yeah. He wasn't looking for anything. He had already started and sold businesses. He doesn't need a dollar.
Yeah.
And then moving up through the ranks like he did in the Trump administration, which is a double-edged sword right there.
For sure.
So, but Pompeo for president, 28.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
So DiOrio, I'll be the FBI director.
Fucking A.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be some shit?
Isn't that I said that is why would you do that to your friend?
Do you think that the FBI has lost the trust of the American public?
I think so, only because they don't have the opportunity to see the people who are doing the job. Right? So all they see is the fuck ups, like anything else. And I get that. And the leadership. The weight, like the quibbling. Yeah. And Congress, like sitting there, like, well, we didn't really. Yeah. Secret Service was worse. Don't get me wrong. That one was ridiculous. And she needed to be canned. But like even the Bureau, like just take it on, man. Yeah. We did this. Yep, we're doing better. We're getting better at it, and the agents are working their ass off.
I do see a lot less accountability, in our entire government structure on both sides. It's rare nowadays for somebody to say, we fucked up. We need to do better, and we will do better. We'll learn from it, and this is my fault or this is our fault. Like,
and that doesn't happen.
You never see that anymore.
You never do. Everybody's worried about that move up the ladder. That takes me a notch down. Well, you know what,
dude? I mean, to me, that elevates you to the fucking
I would think
top
so.
At this point, especially because nobody does it.
Yep, nobody does it.
It's like nobody's perfect. Everybody knows nobody is perfect. So and everybody knows you fucked it up. So by sitting there saying you didn't, like, you look like a 12-year-old.
You really do. Quibbling with your mom and dad about not doing your homework.
So I guess the follow-up question to that is, what steps should the FBI take to restore trust? Is that to shine lights on the wins?
I think we have to do a better job of doing that, showing what's actually being disrupted in this country and how good we're doing as, I don't know where you can prove. The leadership has to just respond to that. And really should highlight people who are doing stuff. Like we used to do this thing called Citizens Academy, where we'd bring in a lot of influential leaders in every small office and talk to them about the wins and let them go out and talk about what the FBI does and how they do it.
That's smart.
Answer. The other thing is being responsive. We are terribly unresponsive to things because, again, it goes, and I'm not blaming it on a generation or the new agents or what they do, but in my day, if a boss would walk around and you were sitting at your desk, he'd boot you the fuck out. Like, you're not doing your job. Get out on the street. But nowadays, with technology and what they can do from the desk, we're not associating with the public. So they're not getting a chance to see the FBI doing good things.
So more of the old school community policing.
Yeah, get out. Gumshoe it, man. Yeah. Get out and walk the, be there.
Yeah.
Show up.
Yeah.
Be close to the flag.
Yeah.
Be close to the flag. What it comes down to.
Yeah. What question have I not asked you that I should have?
How I do my hair? No.
Yeah, well, it's the same way I do it.
What question should you ask me that I haven't been? What's my purpose?
What is your purpose?
So my purpose is to leave a legacy for my grandson where he knows exactly who I was and what I did, and to hope that he takes that and pays it forward.
Can I take it a step further?
Yeah.
Your great-grandson.
Yeah.
Because, to me, that's one of the saddest things about human beings.
Isn't that?
Is that so few people know what their great-grandfather, who he was, what he did. They don't know anything about him.
Yeah, you can't. That is amazing. I like that. Yeah. I like that because, I'll have interaction with my grandson, even if I'm in my 80s and shit in my pants, which is going on now. So what's the difference? But I like really to know. You're right. Like you're right. I knew my grandfather, but I have no idea who his father was.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah, to me, like the true mark of a legacy is if the people in your bloodline who you never even actually met know about you, then that's saying a lot.
That's saying an awful lot. And I look at my buddies who are like generational wealth guys who have built it up from the ground up. Their legacy is built in based on that. How do we do it that are scraping by, dude? Yeah. I've gone from a full net worth to a half with the first divorce to a quarter, and I'm probably working on an eighth.
Yeah. Now I can't afford to pay attention. Yeah, that's man, I know it. J3 Global and Everyday Spy. Tell me, we had Andrew on. Obviously, this is actually a big part of why you're sitting here. But so we've gotten a pretty good synopsis on Everyday Spy.
Yep.
Feel free to share what you want to about that, but also tell us about J3 Global, how it started.
Yeah,
what
man.
you do and all that.
So when I was thinking about leaving the bureau and retiring, it was time. It's you realize it's people used to say you'll know when to leave, and I did. I did, and I'm glad I did at the time. I did some interviews for CSO jobs, and I was like, yikes, you know what I mean? Like I just can't do that. I know myself. I couldn't sit around and worry about how much paper was taken from international paper this week. I don't give a shit, really. Yeah. So my mentor, who's a class of 77 guy, his name's Vinny Viola, tremendous dude. Vinny said, well, why don't you just put a shingle out and help everybody? Why help one company? Just do what you're doing. So it started out as like a fractional CSO thing where I was like, hey, I'll come in, I'll do a special project. That didn't really drive me either. So I went back to what I love, man, which is investigations. Yeah. I mean, I love doing that. And the niche out there is for discrete investigations. Yeah. So less about the divorces and that kind of stuff. Like I don't have any interest in that. I'll say I don't want to do any of that. I've been through them, so I certainly don't want to investigate them. My standpoint is I coupled Bustamante was a godsend, and I had a transformation in walking with Christ about 2 years ago, and I realized that my faith in him would bring opportunities. Well, Andy was that opportunity. He has a niche for due diligence, for investigations, for leverage work, and I'm the guy who can fill that as a subject matter expert. So not only are we sharing clients, but we're doing work for other clients that's right in my lane that I want to do, right? And so, and it's not just about the investigations, but it's also, for instance, I have clients that are doing huge major projects in certain towns. I have experience there on the corruption side. I know what people are trying to get from my clients. So we go forward. We're upfront. We're proactive about that and saying, listen, when you hire Jim DiOrio and they look at my background, they know this client's off the table. Or when they're looking to negotiate a settlement or some type of lawsuit, and I'm there doing leverage work and talking to them about why it's probably not a good idea to take this to litigation.
Yeah.
It's probably a good idea to just settle.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not like a strong arm thing. It's just what I've done my whole life.
So it's the same thing I provide in dogs, in that you're the pointy-eared ass eater sitting at the door that the criminal's like, I'm going to hit the next house.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I always say you don't have to outswim the shark, man.
Yeah.
Just the guy next to you.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we kind of lead through, and we're getting to help a lot more people than we would have just doing a chief security officer role, or Andy doing a chief technology officer role. Like it doesn't feel right, and I still feel like I'm in the game. I still feel like I'm part of national security, building on things, and it allows me a little bit of a legacy on that side.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And it's cool shit too.
It's cool stuff, man. And I get to talk guys like you and Julian Dory and all those guys, and really share. I mean, this is therapy for me, man. I don't know. I think you realize that, talking to you and being able to be around people that I feel comfortable with anyway, because I know that we talked about track record and trust, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's important. Yeah. Most people don't understand what we do. I know in the town I was living at in my second marriage, it's a very exclusive town in New Jersey. And I can remember this question, and this will stick with me the rest of my life, right? So person asked, where did you go to college? And I said, West Point. They said, oh, that's good, but where did you do your schooling at? And I thought to myself, you fucking asshole. So I just went, well, the local community college, because what else are you going to say to that person? So being around that, I was always uncomfortable in that position. But here I'm very comfortable. Yeah. And with my clients, I'm very comfortable because we can educate them too about the need. We were talking, we didn't get a chance to talk a little bit about the Johnny Mac Soldiers Fund. Yeah. And my buddy who passed, right? So Johnny Mac Soldiers Fund started simply as one thing: pay for his five kids' college. We had that done in 2 weeks.
Wow.
With my class. Yeah. We just looked at each other, and people say, what does the class 86 got in common? I know with your classes, right? There's different things in your class that are different than other classes. And everybody's asking for the successful classes to give them secrets. There's no secret, really. I just said we love each other. We literally love each other. We love being around each other. We care for each other. And this McHugh thing kind of brought us together to do this a little bit more. Shortly after that, we kind of said, well, we paid for their 5 kids' college. There's so many other kids out there that need it. How do we do it? And we organized this Johnny Mac Soldiers Fund. Yeah. And we just had our gala, and it was our 16th gala in Atlanta this past, 3 weeks ago. We went over the $50 million mark. We've raised $50 million. Yeah. We've paid 7,000 scholarships, all for surviving children on the war on terror. Every one of those kids.
That is amazing.
It's crazy.
That is amazing.
And you meet these kids, these are they know. We talked about legacy, right? And Mr. McHugh, I had the chance to talk to him shortly after John passed. And he said to me 3 things, Jimmy D. Did he suffer? And I was able to answer that one pretty easily, because my buddy Brian, one of my classmates, Brian Chincoin, was on the scene. I said no. He said, those motherfuckers need to pay. And we were able to find the 5 Afghani cops that did that and take care of that with the help of some of your guys. Yeah. And lastly, don't ever let his name be forgotten. And when you see a kid that never knew him, that probably was not even born, stand on a stage in Atlanta and say, Colonel McHugh is the reason I can go to college. Yeah. And here's what I know about Colonel McHugh. And John McHugh's 3 daughters were sitting in the audience. And to me, man,
doesn't get any better.
It doesn't get any better than that. So purpose, it's just, I've got purpose. I've got my life back. Yeah. Things are, I couldn't be better, man. Yeah. So
fuck, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing. I know it's heavy.
Bro.
Kind of a strange question maybe as a follow-up, but how do you calculate what a scholarship costs? Because, fucking in-state at a community college versus fucking Yale, there's a pretty big disparity.
100%. So here's the beauty of
McHugh
too. We had a congressional bill passed, the Colonel John McHugh Act, which says whatever any one of these kids goes for state rate at any school.
Oh, nice.
That's first, right? But secondly, we look at we have people that we don't necessarily find those kids. So we got other organizations that we work with, great organizations, Folds of Honor, No Greater Sacrifice, Children of Fallen Patriots, all those people who know the list, know the need. We just raise the money to pay it, right? So there's a formula that looks at dad's or mom's GI Bill, looks at what they would have to pay anyway based on their financial situation, and we fill the gap. Whatever's not paid, we pay.
I gotcha.
When we calculated initially in 2014, the need was $55 million. It's a little bit greater, but not much. We're at 50.
That's crazy.
So we will do in 2025.
You'll eclipse it.
It'll be done,
Yeah.
right? And then we'll continue on, praying that there's no other need, but the ability to maybe expand a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe start handling some law enforcement. Maybe start handling just some other, spouses,
Yeah.
which we do pay for some of the spouses, but expand it a little bit as long as we're raising money, man. And
Yeah.
shout out to Mercedes-Benz, who my classmate Steve Cannon was their CEO, and
really?
he kind of brought this together. Mercedes-Benz, for a long period of time, for every single Mercedes sold in the U.S., they gave us $15.
No shit.
And that added up to about $3.5 million a year.
Wow.
So they were a huge part of us getting to our goal. And now we've got other people that have come in and filled that gap. And it's just, I'd love to have you to, we always have a Dallas gal. So
Count me in.
all right,
For sure. Yeah.
definitely.
It's an interesting duality. I love that you guys exist, but I hate that you have to exist.
Totally agree, man. I get that.
Because I feel the same way about the Warrior Dog Foundation that I started 15 years ago. Like that, we shouldn't need to exist. And I think between most colleges, the size of endowments that they have, the federal government, the amount of fucking billions of dollars that they've washed away student debt of people that I don't know who these people are. Who am I to say they deserve it or don't deserve it? But to me, if there's a fucking group of people that deserve that,
Every dollar of it,
and it's like,
yep.
There's so many things, and this, is a little off track, but I think, in terms of the recruiting of caliber individuals, you could make it competitive for both the military and all facets of law enforcement, whether it's at the very smallest local level all the way up to the highest levels of federal law enforcement by doing one simple thing, which is you don't pay taxes. Like if you're a veteran of any of those, now you don't pay income tax, you don't pay interest on any of your mortgages, and you have free privatized health care. If you instituted those things,
man.
Think about how competitive it would be for every,
The recruitment would be a non-issue.
Like they would be kicking people out
Absolutely.
by the millions.
Yep.
Yep. And I think like if you got rid of the VA and stopped giving money to so many countries overseas, you could accomplish that.
1,000,000%.
But more importantly is that you'd be getting the absolute very fucking best people.
No doubt about it. And you see these kids, like these kids that we've paid for their college, these are great kids. Yeah. Like these are non-troubled, great kids. I mean, don't get me wrong. They've been through their share of what they've needed to do and done it, but they've done it, right? They've gotten better. They're the best that America has to offer, and they have they've given their mother or father.
Yeah, I mean, to me, more
defense of the country.
Yeah, they deserve it.
They do.
Yeah.
And they're not bitter.
Yeah.
They're just good. They're good kids. They're fun to be around.
Yeah.
I mean, they're teaching me lessons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where can everybody find J3 Global, Everyday Spy, and the nonprofit?
Yeah. So definitely, my Instagram is Special Agent Jim DiOrio. So come on there and follow me. We got some funny stuff going on there, and I talk about both Johnny Mack and C.J. Morgan, who's another guy we talked about. He's killed in a rollover at West Point, 2019. So CJ's mom and dad, CJ's dad is an active Secret Service agent, great dude, and they do some very similar stuff that we have to do, and that's where I'm going to do the half marathon in April,
nice.
right here in Dallas. So that's cjmorganfoundation.com or .org, I think. J3 Global, j3-global.com. And then Everyday Spy is Bustamante, that son of a gun's all over the internet. Yeah. So you can't miss him. And I just, I'm just his sidekick. I'm his Robin.
Yeah. Well, he's got enough hair for both of you.
Dude, he does, man. Holy cow, that's that guy. Yeah. So you'll laugh at this. He showed up at my son's wedding at a country club, and he made it through the ceremony, but he had jeans and the jean shirt on. He got booted.
It's fucking priceless. I love it. Yeah,
definitely. Man.
Quick training timeout. I got to grab something on my desk for you before we wrap up.
Yes, sir.
Man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. We've been going almost 4 hours now, and just such a fascinating career you've had, and at such a pinnacle time in our nation's history, too. You know, pre 9/11, post 9/11, so many years overseas doing good work that unfortunately we can't get super into, but and stateside, just, you know, I think you know, the one last bastion. You know, if you think about the issues that our government has with corruption and it just being this self-licking ice cream cone that's incredibly difficult to defeat. You know, people such as yourself are really the only thing standing between full-blown fucking corruption, where we live in a dictatorship that's, you know, as bad as the height of the English monarchy back in the day, versus a constitutional republic as designed. So thank you for all your years of hard work and putting your life
brother.
on the line.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming. Little parting gift from us here at the Mic Drop Studio.
Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I got you a coin, and you can check out in the box. Thanks to John Johnston. And
That's awesome.
Champion Choice Silver for the buckles.
That is awesome, bro. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you ever find yourself wearing shit kickers and some creased jeans in New Jersey, throw a buckle on there and maybe post a picture of it. But
and just say, hey, how about this? What do you think of that over there? Now I will. I will. Yeah, definitely, man. And thank you, man. You're
absolutely
for all your service and your heart and your heroic actions that nobody will ever know about, but I do.
I appreciate it.
I pray for you every day.
Likewise. Thank you much.
Thank you, brother.
For those listening, especially the Patreon supporters, thank you for your support and your questions. For the viewers and listeners, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed Jim's story as much as I did. If you didn't, you can choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.